the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and it was the night before Draftmas. And all through the house, all the Seahawks fans were stirring, wondering who we are going to pick. Who are we going to get? What are we going to get? I'm going to have this great draft that's going to come up over the next couple of days. Is the Seahawks going to be able to put 1, 2, 3 years together of pure draft excellence? I'm hoping so, but I hope you guys, like myself, are wonderfully excited for what hopefully is going to break down over the next couple of days for our Hawks, as these last two drafts, in my opinion, have been two of the stronger drafts, not just on the John Schneider era, but throughout Seahawks history. I'm not saying they're best of the best, but I've seen some bad drafts. I've seen some low lands. I've seen some, what were we doing that year? But I think John Schneider's on to a new approach, a new plan of attack. He went up to and kind of approached a bit of a fork in the road a couple of years ago. I think in a lot of ways he was allowed to wrestle a little more control into the drafting element of things from what he had prior. And that provided him an opportunity to truly then take control of this draft and lean into, as we've talked about over and over on this channel, valuation. There are really two distinct approaches you can take in a draft. You either take one from need or you take one from value. Need is we walk into the draft and we say, I've got a linebacker that we need a starting linebacker. We need a left guard. We only got one starting running back, so we got to get a running back. We got a starting defensive tackle. We need a backup defensive tackle. And you end up going and looking at all 7 of your picks going, okay, we need these positions with those picks. And that leads you to picking for need. And what you want to pick for is for value. Who is the best player you have on your board by your valuation? Who is just the plain and simple guy? So we will see tomorrow. Everyone's got their boards where the players get stacked up regardless of position on their big boards of the pundits, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Caleb Williams 1 and on down. It's the same thing here. You as the Seahawks come to your pick. You look up on that board. You see where you stand as far as who that number 1 player is that you do have. And that's the one you try to take. And that is what has brought ultimately great success for the Seahawks these past 2 drafts. And I think it's not by happenstance that this has been the change of their approach. And again, I'm not guessing on this and that this is what they did. John Schneider has said over and over for 2 years that this is the new approach that they've taken, that this is the new way that they've looked to kind of hedge. And it was done because they had leaned too heavily towards the need column in prior years. And so I'm jazzed for this draft. I'm jazzed that we have a general manager and a front office that are operating from what I believe to be the smartest approach when it comes to drafting. There is no perfect strategy. There is no, as sometimes I hear from some people in my chat of, well, we'll pick for need here and then we'll pick for value here, and you strike this perfect balance. It's easier said than done to do that. And quite frankly, that eventually just leads you into the need column and away from the value column more often than not. So it's hard to stay in this lane, but it can bring out the results. Let's see what the results are brought out for tomorrow as they continue to operate in this fashion. And today, what we're going to get into here is a couple of mocks I'm going to show you that I ran. And what I want to do here is supply you first with kind of 2 different mocks. We've got the mock of we stand pat, and we've got the mock of that we trade back. I think those are the 2 distinct areas that we both as Seahawks fans, we all as Seahawks fans, are feeling right now, and that this is probably the one of the 2 ways they go. And that a lot of us would love to see the trade back, but sometimes you can't find a trade partner. It takes 2 to tango. Sometimes you just got to, do with what you can do with standing where you are. But if they are able to trade back, and in my scenario, I've got the Seahawks trading back once, but very aggressively far back, I believe that this is going to be the ultimately best result for John Schneider and company as far as this upcoming draft goes. So let's get into it. Bear with me today on my voice, by the way. I'm still getting over kind of a gnarly little cold here, and we're definitely operating with a little bit of, elbows wrapped up, okay? I got a little bit of the icy hot on the back, all right? So bear with me on that side of it. I'm not going to take you through pick by pick. We're going to talk pick by pick here in the draft of what I did, but here is the one that I ran that this is the one that I think would be kind of, to me, both along the lines of something I think I could see John Schneider doing, but then also along the lines of certainly something I would love to see in addition to that. I'm trying to connect some of the dots here. Now, I went to PFN. This is the one that I ran on. So this is the PFN board. This is the one many of my subscribers, many of the people that I read about online say this is the one that drives you to the most accurate. I didn't I necessitate the trade from Kansas City. They necessitated the trade to me. So they traded with me, and I decided I would move back all the way to 32. I would get a kind of a bundle of a couple of picks here from KC in this year's draft, but then included a second round pick in next year's draft as well. Now that's going to be probably a late second round pick, but a late second round pick. So I got myself some ammunition for next year's draft in addition to the picks that I end up making in this draft. I think all of these selections will make a lot of sense. Byron Murphy right now is being connected to the Seahawks. He has reportedly been told that he will not get past Seattle at 16 if he arrives to them. I don't know if there's accuracy to this. There's a lot of gamesmanship going on at this late hour into the draft. It's hard to know who to trust. Who's telling the truth here, who's not. And very certainly there may be a chance that you go back to 32 and Byron Murphy's gone at 23. But I don't think that there's been necessarily a distinction with Byron Murphy that he absolutely is going to go into this first round. And yet there's also the possibility that he goes even up into the top 10, that he becomes the first defender taken off the board. What I'm trying to say here is as you're reading into the tea leaves right now at this hour, there's a wide variance in where exactly Byron Murphy is set to go. And when you do get down to the bottom line on him, this is a 6 foot tall defensive tackle we're talking here, which I don't know. There's not a lot of those guys that tend to go into the first round. But then again, Kalijah Kancey, sub 6 foot tall last year, was able to get in there. So maybe he will as well. But for the sake of this argument, let's play this out where we trade back to 32. We get a couple of picks. KC next year, second round pick. Byron Murphy comes in. The team loves him. Come back, get Junior Colson with Kansas City's pick that they've given us for trading back there because you're going from 16 to 32. T'Vondre Sweat falls into the late third round. I jumped on him there, so we get both the Byron Murphy to T'Vondre Sweat combination coming into the house. I like the opportunity to maybe do that. I think if, though I understand with T'Vondre Sweat and the DUI that he's gotten, that's going to have a lot of people shaken, and maybe that eventually even takes him off John Schneider's board because he doesn't think he's all about ball. It's still such a great fit at that point, and if you're putting both Byron Murphy, Colson, and Sweat as your trio, I think up the middle, that is going to strengthen the interior of your defense mightily in a way that I think is just too tantalizing for John Schneider to pass upon. We come back into 102, and I finally address the offensive line, taking Tanner Bartolini out of Wisconsin, a man who's played all 5 positions along the offensive line throughout his college career, center, guard. I think he can play both of those and find his way into where he's not going to give you an upside to me of star potential, or this is one of the better linemen in the league even, okay? But I think that he can give you league average play while also being a purified fit for this scheme. And that combination will sort of increase his upside as a player because he's going to the best possible landing spot for his skill set, in my opinion. We come back at 118 in the 4th round, and the draw to take a James Williams and the project he may be and to pair him with Junior Colson as my will of the future there. Not the Mike, but as the will linebacker in this defense. I know technically this defense comes from a 3-4 and it's 2 inside linebackers, but go watch the tape again with Ravens last year where they're not running stacked fronts, it's 4-man fronts, and they've got the linebackers running more into the traditional Mike to Will linebacker that you would get out of a 4-man front. That's why I talk about it in this way. It's kind of a shorthand way of talking about it because it just isn't, you're not doing exactly the same thing as an inside linebacker in a 3-4, even though this defense asks you to do a lot of fluctuating between that. But I like the Will lets you just kind of traditionally run and be that off-ball linebacker. You're not getting as much of that center peeling down to you at the second level. You can kind of find your way with a little more freedom out there to kind of roam. And I think James Williams would be a playmaker in this defense in that kind of role. Came back to the offensive line with 131. I believe this was another pick I picked up from the KC. We took Zach Sinter coming off a broken couple of bones in his leg. He's going to probably need maybe even a year to get himself right, but I like putting Tanner and Zach together on this line right out the gate in this line while we're getting defense dealt with at the same time. Tip Ryman comes in at 179. His fall was too great for me. The value was too good if he does fall down to that spot. I like his overall skill set. He's going to be a hell of a blocker. You could bring out Tip Ryman and Pharaoh Brown next year in 12 personnel packages and dominate in the run game. So even if you just think of it as like, okay, what's the base minimum I get with Tip Ryman taking him late like that? He comes in with Pharaoh, and you've got some mashers on the run game, especially if you're going to bring out George Fant then as that into 13 personnel, as that third tight end. Oof. Now you're coming strong with it. Now you're ready to come down and really be able to get after teams in some of those heavier packages, especially let's say down around goal line. We come back at 192, taking one of my kind of favorite running backs in this draft, and I think a very underrated running back in this draft is Blake Watson. I call him the Marshawn Falk of Memphis. The kid's just got a great jump cut, stop and start, understanding of how to be elusive in his movements and timing. Really fun running back. And then we go back to the offensive line one more time, 7th round, because why not? JT Leviston, he is not a tackle. This is a guy who is going to be moved inside at the next level, in my opinion. Maybe a right guard is really his final destination and landing space, but at this point, I just wanted to really get back into the offensive line and make sure that we've really hammered that, considering coming into this draft, Hawks hadn't really done a whole lot outside of just Laken Tomlinson and Nick Harris. You haven't really hit this hard. So this is a place to where maybe you could hit it. And I think Leviston's going to translate into guard well, at the very least, to be a decent backup, big guard in there that can move people off the ball when you move him in there. He's naturally a very, very big dude. So this would be the trade back scenario to me. What I would look to do is, if we're moving back and the players that I think that they would look to target given this defense, this would be a bit of a dream scenario. I'll give you guys that. You may not get the assets back from KC that I got back. You may not have Byron Murphy then fall there to 32. You could maybe say instead of Byron Murphy, well, maybe it's Zerzon Newton that they take there at 32, right? If not Murphy, then Newton. Is it likely that both those two defensive tackles are taken into the first 32 picks? I'm not sure. So that is where we stand with this one. I want to show one other one, which was, of course, the non-trade back scenario. And I wanted to use a different deal on this one. I wanted to use the PFF one on this one to just kind of give us a little bit of a different flavor. So we didn't get too much repetition on this. There might be a little bit of overflow in players. But the other guy, other than Byron Murphy, who is being heavily connected to the Seattle Seahawks, of course, is Cooper DeJean. His star, much like Murphy, seems to be rising. He's more certain in his rise. Murphy's just depends on seemingly which source you kind of lock into, that where he's going to go and which teams really do like him. I still get the sense that he is going to go high, but it's hard to find or exactly quantify what his landing spot would be if we're talking top 12, top 13. Cooper DeJean's another guy connected with the Seattle Seahawks. This is a guy that I believe can play corner at the next level. Many think that he has to go to be a safety because he's not going to have the hip transition in order to be able to do that stuff. I don't know if I buy into that as much, because I saw him transition his hips this year in college when he was finally asked and allowed to be able to play corner. And I think what some people are really kind of confusing on some of the hip transition and not being as snappy in the movements out of the corner role is that he's just been put there for the first time in a full-time role. They move this kid around all over the place, and if you're being moved around all over the place, it's very hard to get good at just one position in college football. I do believe the upside is there with him at cornerback at the next level. I do believe he can also give you snaps at other positions in addition to that. But I think that the tossing him into just he has to be a safety at the next level, I think, is a bit premature, especially in this defense that requires its players to do so many different things. And that's really the bottom line with him, is that he is a pure fit for what McDonald's going to want from his players in the secondary, much in the way that Witherspoon is. I can play outside. I can play inside. You want me to go take some safety snaps? I can do that. You want me to play like a Sam linebacker down in nickel packages? Crush me in down near the line of scrimmage there, have me near the tight end and have to be elusive around that tight end block and still get in the backfield? I can do that. And so this is a pick that it would make a lot of sense, even though from Seahawks fans, they wouldn't love it as a perspective. I think there's a reason they've been flirting with them. Come back in the 3rd round, Cooper Bebe. You guys know I've been talking about this cat for 2 years, and I just really do dig him. I think he's the best guard in this draft, in my opinion. I think he's technically brilliant. I think he is going to be a day one starter, and I think he's going to be a very good player in this league. 4th round, I took Ben Sinnott, trying to go a bit of a different direction than the other draft one now on this one. You do need a tight end for the future. This is a little bit about a move of looking into the future. John Schneider may be in a place when it comes down to it. Come on, kitty. What's going on? Kitty. Sorry. Yeah, it's wanted to get up. All right. Oh, gotcha. Okay. There we go. Oh, you want to go lap, huh? It's lap time? Okay. We can do lap. Okay. Sorry, guys. Kat's having a moment here. New place. She's nervous. All right. So Ben Sinnott, I think very well outside of Bowers, has a really good argument for being made that he's the second best tight end in this draft, even better than Jatavian Sanders. He blocks better than Jatavian Sanders. Jatavian's more athletic, better at contested catches and that type of thing. But Sinnott is still a really solid player. Come back in the fourth round and we get our power edge. I think that's one of the positions that Mike McDonald really would like to have John Schneider attack in this draft somehow, some way. And that is Brennan Jackson, who I think does supply that. Now, I don't love his upside, and I think he has got a little bit of limitedness on that, but he can come in as an early down guy, as a big edge off that edge, and supply that run defending role where he sets the hard edge. He's a factor in the run game at that point, high effort guy. I could see Brennan Jackson being a guy that they end up going a little bit kind of, I guess, sub early in the fourth round, where I had a fourth round grade on him, but fourth, fifth round grade, We come back in the next 2 rounds, and I thought we would get very lucky if we're John Schneider from his perspective, in my opinion, if the draft plays this way. I don't know if I buy into it. I've seen both of it in both simulators, where it's allowing for some of these linebackers that you would have thought, Trevis Wallace, Nathaniel Watson, Jalen Ford, Cedric Gray. Some of these guys are falling into the depths of these drafts in a way that I didn't think I would anticipate to happen on draft day, because they're really good players. I think Jalen Ford can start this league. I think Nathaniel Watson can start this league. But by PFF's one, they still have them here available into that 6th round range. So I hadn't dealt with linebacker up until this point. I come back, hammer it back to back. The fact you're putting a 6th rounder on any of these guys, not a heavy investment. You can come back next year and deal back in with this position once again. And this is part of the benefit that I think you have in signing the 2 guys they signed in free agency with, Jerome Baker and the other kid they brought in, where that allows you now the opportunity to be able to not have to go early there if you don't want to go there, necessarily. By the way, I think I forgot to mention the Junior Colson pick. By the way, another one. I did Junior Colson in that second round. I think I brought that up. Maybe I might have skipped over that one. I'm a little sick today. We're running on NyQuil daytime here, so you guys bear with me. Last pick was Marcus Harris. I believe the Seahawks have met with this kid, inside defensive lineman. This would be kind of a flyer pick, much like Leviston, I think, at that point, where you just like his fall. Don't necessarily trust that even that necessarily makes the team, but he gives you another big body inside to come in there later on. I didn't get the chance in this mock draft to get the Byron Murphy or the Tavondre Sweat. So this does give you a chance to go back in and add something into the mix here. This would be kind of a little bit more meat and potatoes kind of draft versus trading back. I think it kind of does illustrate a little bit to me of the real true benefit to trading back in this draft. Do you either want this and take away let's just do this. If you're getting, some people get hung up on the details of this, like, we would not have gotten an extra 2nd round pick from KC and extra draft. Okay, just toss out KC's 2nd round pick. Just toss that part out. Okay. Would you rather have this? Or would you rather have this? Would you rather have this? Or rather have this? And that's really where I think so many of you, smartly enough, as we talked about this yesterday, came back and brought up to me, and I still think it's the truth of it, is just you keep coming back round and round and round and round and round, and it's like you're walking through the forest, right? You're trying to get out of the forest, and you end up coming around. You always keep coming back in the same circle, like a Twilight Zone episode, and we come back to the same spot, being trading back seems to be the one thing that makes the most sense here, and gathering picks, and that coming away with more of the multitude of players here beats out the, theoretical high-end talent you're able to get instead of trading back. And I kept coming back to that over and over again. I ran through these throughout the night, last night, kind of playing with it in the last couple of days, as many of you have. I'm sure you guys have done countless of these. And it is the truth that ends up coming forward over and over again, which is that if I'm just John Schneider, I've got to be itching to move back. I've got to get another 2nd round pick. I can't wait into the depths of the 3rd round and hope that, we're going to be able to get by on that at that point, in my opinion. So I would expect that they are going to do something. I don't know what they'll be able to draw, and some of this is going to be dependent on what happens at the top of the front of the 1st round. The main thing we want to see, Hawk fans, going into this draft tomorrow, is we want to see as many quarterbacks being taken off the board as possible. If we can get 6 guys gone by the time we pick at 16, we will have a trade partner who will move up with us. I guarantee it. There'll be too good of a player there for not a team somewhere back at 25, 26 that feels that they're very close to being a Super Bowl contending team, and this type of player can help to take them over the top. Just my opinion, but I think that's where that's what our hope is, that this goes down and breaks down, and hopefully it will do so. Let's go ahead and jump over to you guys in the chat. I appreciate everybody tuning in today. I hope you guys are hyped up today and ready for this to go down. We will be streaming all 3 days of the draft here. So end to end, we'll be starting off about 4:30 tomorrow, 4:30 or so. I might get on even earlier. I don't know. Depends on if I'm not bedridden, I guess, by this point. with this cold. I'm sick. I'm already, California makes me sick, literally. So let's jump in, see where you guys are at in this 23rd hour before we are about to commence this thing finally after all of this prep work, and where you guys find yourself leaning to. Definitely betting favorite for me right now would be Byron Murphy and then Cooper John, neck and neck, I think, based off of what we're reading and hearing. So I think the team is definitely kind of feeling a little more now. They could be just smoke screening this and Fatano becomes the guy or something else. Certainly John's been a guy in the past who's done, and that whole place has done a great job of keeping a lid on things and not allowing things to leak out. So this is all definitely a very big guessing game. AI, how you doing? It's good to see you in the house, Ethan Tech World. Mark Hapicorn says, like and please subscribe. And Mark is speaking the word from his mouth to your ears, and that is right. Please do hit that like button. Please do subscribe. I would really appreciate it. It's great to see you in the house too. Mark, Greg, let's go, man. Let's go. T-minus 23 hours. That's right. We're almost 22 hours away from one of the landmark drafts in Seahawks history. A time no one was encountering would happen or could, and now it is undertaken. Are you prepared for the draft of a lifetime? Detroit handed out funny money today. Holy heck. Did they? Did Detroit? Well, they're in that mode where next year they got to probably feel like they need to get it done. So Penny Sewell, 4 years, $112 million. Well. And then you got Amon St. Brown signing a 4-year deal extension. Makes sense, And the slot guys' value continues to rise with that deal to Amon. But, they're in their window now, They're not just those plucky up-and-comers. You're in it here if you're Detroit, and now's the time not to start getting cheap with it. Bravo to them, man. Bravo to them. Reward guys who deserved it there. Penny Sewell's been awesome. They moved that kid from left tackle to right tackle, and he didn't miss a beat from college. Brian E., what's up? Nick, hello. How you doing, man? CJ, what's up? Kurt, hello. CJ says we're definitely trading down. I got to say that I can see it. Curtis says we will draft Sweat number 1. Maybe so. Jacob says the best case scenario, all 6 quarterbacks get taken as well as the top 3 receivers before us. That gives us a top 7 player other than quarterback or receiver. Well said, Jacob, and that's my feeling on it too. If we do get the 6 QBs going, I have really strong feelings we're going to see the three receivers go. Because just historically, when receivers are this good, they're not going to tend to last longer into the depths of the draft. For instance, Jackson Smith and Jigba last year kind of lasted because he was looked at as more of just a pure slot guy. None of these top 3 receivers are looked at in that way. There should be up into the top 13, 14 picks, in my opinion. But do the 6 quarterbacks go? Man, the Knicks, Penix stuff, you got to give your props to the Broncos and the Raiders and even the Seahawks and whoever else might be kind of lingering here because they've all done a good job with both of those 2 quarterbacks of keeping things really quiet about what the intention is there. And I have no idea right now for sure these guys are going to go. I've thought that they will, when it's all said and done, that the 6 guys will go. But it is definitely at this even late hour, still very much a guessing game. Taker 610, thank you for the $2 donation. I appreciate you for that, Taker. It's great to see you in the house too, my man. He says, Rob Stanton said a comp for Chop is Micah Parsons. Yeah, I could understand that. It's not a bad comp. I think with Micah, I don't know. I think I've heard it too before. It's not a bad comp. I'm trying to look at Micah Pro Day 459. They had him running, and so it wasn't like Micah necessarily destroyed his pro day. He had a really good pro day, but it wasn't 32-inch vertical leap and all that. Oh wait, hold on here. They got the wrong guy here. There we go. No, I guess that's it. Oh, 439. There we go. So Micah Parsons was a 439 guy coming out. And I just say this because there's a lot of similarities between them, but Chop's more like a 4.5 guy, Micah to me is more of like at his size gives you the 150, 149, 10-yard split get off, whereas Chop's more of the 154 get off, where there's not an incredible amount taker of difference between them at that point, but it's just that little bit of difference between, to me, Micah's got a little more of that raw, I can get by with my freakishness thing, whereas Chop has to get a little bit more into that, I got to get by with my technique and refinement. It's a good comp in that they're both guys as pass rushers coming out that are tremendously raw, but very athletic and explosive. I think they have good length to them equally on that side of it, 32.5-inch arms for Chop, so he's okay on that side of it. Chop just has so far to go with his, I guess the two other things Chop has so far to go, Taker, with his technique and knowing what to do with his hands and having a plan of attack or a counter. Thing with Micah was that, yeah, he was that way, but Micah was also a guy playing linebacker so much at Penn State. And there are little things with Chop where he disappears in games at Penn State, where with Micah Parsons, when he's playing, he was in it. He was pretty ferocious as a player at Penn State. He was playing out of position, basically a linebacker. He should have been just off of edge the whole time. And I know, even now I still kind of feel like he should just probably almost full time be an edge. But that'd be the two differences I'd have. But it's still a good comp. I don't have a better comp for Chop. maybe that's what I should say. Let me see. Did I end up coming on, arriving with to somebody on that one? I don't think I ended up coming to a good conclusion on the Chop Robinson comp. So, Micah Parsons is as good as probably any. Yeah, I don't think I had anyone on that. Thanks for the donation, though. Rob knows his stuff on draft, so he's seeing Micah. I'll trust in it. Would you rather have one great player than two good ones? I would take a great player over two good ones. Why do I? But that's the caveat here, is that I have to know that the guy that I'm picking is capable of being that great player, or is going to be that great player. Do I sit there at 16 saying I'm going to take Byron Murphy and Cooper DeJean and I know those guys are going to be great players? I don't. I think there's a very good chance that those two players could end up very good players. Do I sit there at 16 and take Jared Verse because I think he's going to be a great player? I don't. I think he's going to be a very good player. I think that's where, Fuaga, I think is going to be a great player. Joe Alt, I think is going to be a great player. Brock Bowers, I think is going to be a great player. All three of those top end receivers, I think all three are going to be a great player. Sounds like Malik Neighbors may have some work ethic stuff that he's got to clean up. But the other two guys, there's no questions on that. They're going to be awesome, But if I don't have those options available to me and it is a good player available to me, then I'd say, you flip back, get the two good players, to counter you, what's better, one good player or two good players? But that's why I really keenly, in my opinion, everyone has to really look at the guys in that first round and go, who's truly the blue chippers here? Who's the guys we're not talking ourselves into being the creme de la creme? That these are the guys that, are going to be star potential. These are the guys that you look at and we'll be talking about 5 years from now saying, yeah, that guy was a dog in that draft. And the numbers get pretty low pretty quick when you're looking at that, especially when you take out the quarterbacks. But that's going to be the fun of tomorrow. Why do I? Why did he says, Dear Football Jesus, give us Seattle Murray, Newton, or Turner? Amen. calling upon God on it, huh? We're bringing the big guns in here, huh? Estefan Jones, hey brother, shout out to my wife to be Yasmin, being ever so patient through this draft process for us that love this sport. Much love, B. Hey, Yasmin or Jasmine. I want to make sure I'm saying Jasmine. Jasmine, thank you so much for letting Estefan do this draft coverage stuff. It's almost over with. You're going to have 2 months to him here to yourself before we get to football season. So a lot of time to, catch back up. But this is a process. We all go through it every year. It's football's life, but we all appreciate it. And you're a great wife for allowing Estevan to dive into it, because it just makes the draft that much funner when you know all that we all know on this stuff coming in. Ricardo, Hawks Nest. I checked out the Texas-Washington game. You're right. Penix balled out that game. He made Byron Murphy look like Jamal Adams on that one play. It's the comp I wanted to make that game specifically, Ricardo, too, because it was the equivalent, if you kind of think about it, that CJ Stroud thing, and again, to make sure on this, as always, Michael Penix upside to me is not CJ Stroud. I don't have that forecasted to him, but I do see the similarities here a little bit in that you had CJ Stroud come up to that Georgia playoff game the year before, and there were all these questions about how he would deal with pressure because much like Michael Penix, right? He had a great offensive line in front of him. He had 2 draftable tackles in front of him. He was really well protected in that offense. It wasn't a high volume offense, so he wasn't making even as many throws as Michael was asked to make in the Washington offense, but he was really well protected. And then when he would get pressure, and I remember doing this with the evaluation on CJ throughout that year, when he would get the occasional pressure coming through, I think the Michigan game, for instance, it would throw him off. He would be affected by it. And you then got to that Georgia game and those questions were there in him. And if he didn't have that Georgia game go down, I think very well there's a good chance that CJ Stroud falls to Seattle at 5 or maybe gets down to 10. But that Georgia game was much like, to me, what Michael Penix did in that Texas game, where he showed you with subtle movement. It wasn't that he suddenly became Russell Wilson back there and, he's like, whoa, he's got this in his bag. It was just that he could show you that he had the ability with the sense of timing and the feel and the climbing of the pocket, or to pull back a couple of steps and a guy go by. Just it's those little subtle using of leverage against the defender. That defender's coming at you full speed. He's not under control. A lot of times he's bent sideways near to the turf. You don't have to do some great juke all the time. Sometimes it is just about the timing of jumping forward past him, especially if you have a clean pocket in front of you around that. And then you could buy yourself a little bit of time to still then make the throw. And I thought he did that like Stroud did that to a tremendous degree against that great Georgia defense the prior year. And really, I think, locked themselves in that way of being those guys that, this guy can do this at the pro level. He can use this skill going forward. And that does more solidify maybe where his upside could land. But thank you for going and checking it out, Ricardo. It was a really impressive game to me. I watched it a couple times just to go back again, and especially on some of the reads he made on some of those throws and how did he get to getting to that read on the deep throw there. But very impressive performance, and that's in the playoffs for a guy there. That's I know Texas defense wasn't anything special. They're going to have a couple guys drafted in this draft, but all things at the end of the day, that's still you in a playoff game playing for national title and a guy balling out there in that moment. I think it's definitely a telling moment at that. Jacob says, hot take, but feels right. Bo and Penix will be better quarterbacks than Daniels and May. Ooh, I love the hot take, Jacob. I think there's certainly a possibility of it. When you have guys in Bo and Penix that have really the long, rich history in starting like they do and have that kind of background coming in, I think you do feel a little bit better about them coming in and providing you at the very least good functional play. Whether they can reach the higher heights beyond that, we'll see. But I think indeed with Daniels and May, you do have 2 somewhat boom-bust prospects going on here. I know Daniels has played a lot of football, but so he does kind of fit into that realm too, but there still feels something with him that's got a little bit of that boom-bust side of it, especially with the way he doesn't take care of his body. He's got to figure out that fast. I still like Drake May, but I'll acknowledge fully that he's a guy that has a lot of volatility to whether or not he's going to be able to get everything refined on his end too. I'm anticipating he will, and that's why he's still very highly rated for me, but I could see it go out like that, Jake, if I could. Boy, grenade, I'm kittyless. I am kittyless. Like, hey, my cat's on here. Call up my Xena girl here. Where's my other cat? Kitty. Come on. Herbicide says San Diego bad for you, dude. Should have stayed in Spokane. Maybe so. I just a lot going on. I think I wrecked myself a little bit. It's all good. I'll bounce back by tomorrow. I think, or you guys are gonna hear me coughing and maybe I'll just do a bunch of NyQuil. That'll be fun for you guys on the show tomorrow. Brian, Holy as hand grenade, we shall build a wall and get the Rams and Niners to pay for it. Kelly says, hey, B, let's go. For me and my dad, Joe Z, will be watching you tomorrow. Well, thank you, Kelly. Tell Joe I said, what's up? He likes Fatano, and I like Quignon and Cooper DeJean. You know me. I always love defense. Let's go. Let's go, Kelly. Well, I'm looking really forward to this draft coverage tomorrow and just how it all unfolds, watching what every individual team does and how's this going to go? What are they going to do? So I'm ready to go with it. I really am. And glad you guys are as well. I think the Hawk community is pretty hyped up at this point, and rightfully so. And let's just see if we can kill it for 3 straight years, see if we can go out there and take this draft apart again like we've done the past couple. Because this team is building a really nice base of foundation, and you just add a little bit more to it, and we are just that much closer to getting to that spot where we're all looking to get again, which is to become an elite team again, becoming truly a contender again. Team taking the right steps all the way around on this, in my opinion. AI says PFN is the best. Pro football trades are not realistic. Yeah, that's why I wanted to... that's why I did definitely the trade AI on that one with mine in the in regards to doing it on the PFN site. So the one I did the trade one was for sure that was the PFN one, and that was the one too where the Chiefs offered it. I didn't try to make the trade happen or anything. Herbicide says, are we really thinking of taking Penix? It's everywhere. Well, I don't think that in my opinion, the rumors of Penix right now probably at the end of the day really shouldn't be taken one way or the other, because it's also in Seattle's best interest right now to try to make it seem like they're going to take Penix at 16 for any team that sits behind him. If I'm John Schneider, I want it to go without saying at this point. I'll shout it from the mountaintops. If Michael lands at our spot, we're taking him. And you want to do that to me to drum up interest. Now, could there also be true interest in Penix? Well, yeah. The whole thing that I was thinking last night with this Herbicide was just that Grubb is the insider here. He's the guy that worked in that corporation that's now just about to go and be put on the stock market, right? They're going to go public. And he's the guy that was inside that corporation, helping work it from the ground up. And that corporation is the Michael Penix Corporation. And he's going to be able to go to John Schneider and he's going to say, hey, I got a tip for you. I got an insider tip for you that nobody got. Want to know what it is, John? I'm going to tell you what it is. This guy is going to be the tits. Okay? I'm telling you right now, make him the selection tomorrow, first thing. I will put my job on the line. Now, if Grubb comes in and makes that kind of play, Herbicide, if he's that insider guy telling you that you're going to make 20 times your money on this corporation the second it goes public. From John's perspective, whether you had an intention to pick Penix or not, how much does that start to sway you a little bit one way or the other? Brian says Penix and Fatano will both be gone by 16. No need to worry. We shall see on that one. But the Fatano knee thing being leaked through was kind of interesting, wasn't it? With the timing this last 48 hours, that coming out. Youngt says, thanks for all the insight this pre-draft process, Brandon. Can't wait for tomorrow. Cheers, brother. Hey, cheers, brother, to you too, man. Much love out there to you. Thank you for watching. And I've had a great time doing this draft process. Me and Brandon kind of getting into these prospects and really trying to just understand it better and better every year. Just try to get a little bit more smarter on the bottom line of it. I think it just makes the sport that much better when you got that idea of all the players coming in and what you're dealing with and watching guys as they grow and what they overcome or what they can't overcome. AI says, I like Tanner McClatchin better. We can go Tanner McClatchin. I'll do Tanner instead of Tip. I think they were both there according to on the mock there at that point, AI. I think they were. YDY says, supposedly Murray's agent said he was told Murray wouldn't get past 16. I'm for it. Could see it. I could absolutely see it. Ursa says, did you guys see Penei Sewell getting paid? I didn't think right tackles cost that much. Well, remember, too, with that Herbicide, that they can always punch him back over to the left side if they end up with a left hole. So he can play left tackle, too, whenever. But, yeah, right tackles are getting paid. I mean, look at what is Lane Johnson making right now. And I agree with Ricardo. I think Penei Sewell is the best right tackle in the sport right now at the moment. I think he has surpassed Lane Johnson. His mobility in their run game, his ability to pull in space from any direction or pull out front or climb to the second level and also be a monster at the point of attack, highly, highly beneficial. But yeah, I think he is right now the best. I love that kid coming out of college too. He was awesome. AI says, bottom line is if we trade back, we can probably get Coulson. If we stick and pick at 16, Coulson probably won't be there at 81. Agreed. Hard to see Coulson getting into the depths of the third round. In an AI, you're going to have to probably trade up into the third round early minimum if that's the way that plays. AI says, personally, I like Darius Robinson more than Byron Murphy. Darius is 6'5", 285, and easily play at 295 in years to come. He is a problem, going to be an all-pro. I agree. AI. I think I like Brian. I like Darius Robinson more, especially AI as a fit for what this defense needs. And Jared Riley's nice. Herbicide, he's pretty good. He's got some kind of swerve to him like Kelsey does when he's running his routes. He's a little bit bigger though, so he's not quite as, quick a mover. And Rook's good too, man. Rook's a nice player, good all-around player out of Clemson, Herbicide. He can play the run, he can give you a little bit of pass rush. Lip Drip says, damn, Dayquil, he's really out there. Got to do what you got to do, man. And Ricardo, yeah, I think Byron Murphy was really good in that Washington game. I think that's going to be tape he can go to teams will go to as much like they would with Penix. He just was missing Penix by this much. Penix was putting some good moves on him, but he did have a good game in that one. Gemini Glass, how you doing? Good to see you in here. Well, holiest hand grenade. Imagine no quarterback goes before 5. Well, I think Seattle will be trading up if that happened. Although I saw the funniest quote today about reportedly teams in the NFL like having this issue with Caleb, where I think I saw somebody said like teams are freaked out about Caleb Williams. It's like having Prince playing quarterback. Oh, I thought that was so funny. It had the image of Caleb one side and Prince on the other. I was like, that's kind of it's kind of on the nose a bit. Jag Sports Talk with Jose Rodriguez. How you doing in the house tonight, Jose? Thanks for mentioning. Please hit that like button. It's good to see you, my man. Nichu Trigger says, hoping for Fatano or Leitu. Just give you that Anu, and you're Anu or Atu. You'll be good. Fatano will be nice. Fatano will be nice if he does fall. Why do I says JS drafts BPA now and doesn't value OG, and there will be one of their top graded D players, if not the highest at 16. Everything is set for Seattle to slick and pick a defensive line or an edge. Definitely where I would probably lean to at this point. Yeah, I think it's what we got, Byron Murphy, Jared Verse. Definitely two guys that are probably going to be there available when Seattle picks, and both would be tantalizing options for Seattle. God's Gang says, if they're dead set on a quarterback at 16 and Penix and Nix is there, who would you take? Nix seems safer, Penix more upside. I don't really want a quarterback, but hypothetically speaking. My opinion is I'm not down on Nix. I like him as a player. What I would do though is I come back to, I'm more leaning into that belief as far as you can go and win a Super Bowl by going and getting your fantastic quarterback who can ride the day. And I think that's hard to do, hard to find, hard to hit on. What? First round QB's 30% rate. I think that there's a better route to go, and we've had success going to that other route 10 years ago, God's game, where you more are trying to maximize out the rookie contract of the quarterback that you're going to have as your guy, and then you build the rest of the team up around him. So when you talk about being able to bring Michael Penix into the building, and he's a guy that knows this offensive playbook walking in, that he's been operating in this offense for not just the last theoretically 2 years, but even go back to Kalen DeBoer as an offensive coordinator at the first stop Penix had in college, then he's going to be able to better hit the ground running here than theoretically any other quarterback. You can get to, by year 2, he's good to go as long as you've got that line in place and you can feel comfortable without that. Nix, I think, will take a little bit, maybe more time. I think Nix has got the skill set that fits into the spread system here, so they both, I think, would work. Nix is just a bit of a harder evaluation to me versus Penix because there are times I see Penix going through and doing things that's more NFL-like, making a read pre-snap, looking off a safety, then using that safety's couple of false steps to have him look him off to then hit the shot over the top, doing read progression a little more often. With Nix, there wasn't really as much of that, and so he may have it in his bag, but he just didn't show a lot of it off in college, which then makes it more of a question mark in my mind. Taker's extent, I like trading back and taking Barton or Powers Johnson. I would love going that route too, man. If a lineman's the first pick for us, Taker, tomorrow, I will stand up and clap. That is for sure. Brian, yeah, Parsons a little more athletic. Yeah. I'm with you, man. Chop Robinson, I'm just not as much the fan on him with. I get the tantalizing skill set. I like the way you put it. It's the kind of guy that will get a general manager fired. He looks really athletic, and when he shows it to you, but there's a difference between a guy showing you in flashes in a game, and then you have a guy disappear for a whole game, and then he shows you for like a play or two something cool, and then you don't see it for the rest of the game, and you're like, all right, I don't know what to think about this. And it's even less than flash with him, I would say. Nicholas says, please God, no quarterback at 16. Trade back and get a second-round pick. Sentai Ranger Donnie, Hawks Nest, hello, Brandon and all. Hope everyone's well, despite Boom Studios ending Power Rangers comic book series after 8 years. Well, that's a sad day. Speaking of Power Rangers, Hasbro sources, toy licensing rights to Playmates. There we go. Maybe they'll bounce back there. Why do I says Micah didn't have production because he didn't play his last college year? Chop simply couldn't produce. Well said. Chop's lack of production was alarming to me, but he has all the physical attributes. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. Addis says, can't wait to see who we draft tomorrow. Go Hawks. Let's go. Yes, I'm glad to hear the rest of the chats with me. Jeff, you're the same place. Out on Chop. Chop is not the way. Chop is not the way. The only pork chop we need here in Seahawk history, the only chop we need is pork chop, Walmack. I butchered that joke. But cover-wise, would you be open to trading out of the first if you received multiple top 100 picks in a trade? I kind of did it a little bit almost from a de facto standpoint with my final mock here, copper-wise, because I go back to 32. So, yeah, if the deal is right and tasty, I'll do it. I don't want to do it for the sake of doing it, but if you walk out the other end of it and you're like, ooh, yeah, we got like an extra wing on our plate on this one. You know what I mean? Like it's supposed to be a 10 piece and they give you 12. And if it's like that, yeah, I'm with it. Little Drip says, who are some sleeper picks that could be impactful in their rookie year? I think the guy I had in my draft, Blake Watson, could be an interesting cat that not a lot of people are talking about, who walks in and is very dynamic from the jump. Jermaine Burton, a wide receiver out of Alabama that I think has been a little bit slept upon throughout this process. Malik Washington out of Virginia. I think the kid's got a lot of Steve Smith in his game. Make of that what you will. but he would be a guy that I would, definitely take a look at as a possibility. When it comes to linemen, I didn't really find myself as fascinated with the interior offensive line of this draft as I was hoping I was going to be. Sato Lamau is a guy that could play guard. He's played tackle for Utah. Big guy that I think, maybe could be a later round guy that you look at who's kind of fun out there. Mason McCormick, I like him more 4th, 5th round than I like him in where I've been seeing him in kind of a 2nd, 3rd round, kind of cat in some of the places he's been kind of placed. But not much on the offensive line in that regard. Mohamed Kamara, an edge guy, seems like he's gained a little bit more favor as time has gone on. I think that's, someone that not a lot of people are really talking about. Austin Booker, an edge out of Kansas. It'll be taken the 4th, 5th round that I think has got some dynamic elements to his game. Needs to add some more weight, but really knows how to rush the passer. I really did like Darius Masau's tape out of UCLA. I think he's going to be a good player. Obviously, Mike Sanders still. I don't know if he's really underrated at this point, but he's going to be a slot of, I don't know where he's going to go, but he's really fun. He's a lot of fun. Renardo Green. Kamal Hayden. Those would be some of the corners I really like. From safeties, it's Katan Oladipo, Darian Taylor Demerson. I like those two guys quite a bit. There's some names for you. Kind of little sleeper names. Johnny Newton's nice. Why do I? Jason Rusk says, less than 24 hours, finally. I think we have to move back. Every mock I did without moving back went bad. To your point, as I was saying earlier, we started the show out on this one, Jason. I did 2 mocks, one with you trading back, one with you not trading back, or me not trading back. And it's, I think, a bit of a key difference between the two as far as what you end up in the final outcome versus trading back versus not. And I think John's probably working the lines even tonight to try to prepare this thing to happen. But less than 24 hours, folks. We are inside T-minus 21 hours and counting. And we will be going all 21 hours until... No, we're not. I'm not doing that. No. No. But we are getting on the precipice here, that's for sure. Johnny Gelato. Would you trade DK to Chicago for their 9th pick, get rid of the contract, and grab one of these top dudes? Johnny Gelato, I would not do that at this point. The getting out from under the contract, number one, I don't think that it's a bad contract that DK Metcalf's underneath. It's not, to me, his fault that the team's run a real rudimentary offense and hasn't really, taken the lengths to target him in a way that most number one receivers would be treated in other offenses. The other part that comes into play on this is that there's not really any money, Johnny, to save. In fact, in a lot of ways, you're going to increase your overall costs on this. So that would be kind of, I guess, the great irony on you wanting to do this deal is if you were to trade DK Metcalf, you're going to take a $23 million dead money hit. You'll save about $1 million collectively. But you're now picking up the 9th pick in the NFL draft, which means that you now have to carve out another $10 million on your salary cap to pay one of these top dudes, be it Malik Neighbors or Romo Odunze. So essentially, you're adding another $10 million to the wide receiver cost. You're eating $23 million of dead money just to get DK out the door. So there's just really no spot that it's ever made any sense to me on moving DK. I don't want to move him. I think he should stay here in the long term. I'd love to see him under a contract extension after next year. But this is one thing that gets brought up. I just don't think that there's any real tangibility. Consider this, folks. We're right up against the cap right now. You give off DK, you're eating that $23 million of dead money you don't get back. You're not getting the returns and assets. I mean, if they're giving you the 9th pick for that, Johnny, for DK, yeah, you're maybe getting the value for DK at that point purely for who he is as a player and where he's at in his career. But then you're not getting any of the value back for the $23 million of dead money you're eating. Much like Denver gave us a little bit of an extra kicker in their picks for the amount of dead money that we had to eat in that Russell Wilson deal. It wasn't just you're getting Russell. It's also we have to eat this dead money to make this deal happen for you. But that extra part to consider is that you pick up that 9th pick. That's now another $9-10 million on your cap that you have to build on into. So those guys aren't necessarily cheap as top 10 picks anymore. Nolan, thank you for the $2 donation. I appreciate you for that, Nolan. Says, think Troy Fatano's knee report is real or smoke. The timing gets me very, 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 very suspicious, Nolan. I find myself kind of like, doing that thing they do in the movies where you go low. You got thin the eyes when you're suspicious, right? I'm a little suspicious at the timing. A couple days before the draft, feels like a team around 18, 19, 20 maybe leaked a little bit of this report, hoping they could cause a little bit of a firefall for Fatano down to them maybe at 17 or 18. I think for me, if it comes down to it was one of two ways on this one, Nolan, where if it is, okay, he's got bone on bone, then you go, okay, probably can't pick him at 16. If it's a matter of there's a thin film of cartilage on his knee that will last about 5 years according to the doctors, and then he's probably going to be heavily reduced as a player, I don't think that would affect me that much, because I think I would just kind of shake it off and be like, whatever. Yeah, like 5 years of great play for that position at that point with that guy, I'll take it. Especially for the guy that provides the flexibility he does to be able to play left guard, left tackle, right tackle, maybe even right guard and center at one point. So it's so specific to be just completely smoke, Nolan. And maybe this medical report differs by team. One team doctor sees a knee going to hell, and another team's doctor is like, no, it's fine. It'll be great for years to come. But it's only if it's really in that chronic situation to me that you'd be scared away, because there's risks on every pick. Everybody's got something can happen. Something could turn sideways. You just have to roll the punches a little bit with that stuff and take your risks. Granted, it's not too egregious. No bone on bone. Addis the Gamer says, thoughts on the DK video? Yeah, we had a video where, boy, these kids are getting more and more disrespectful, aren't they? It's just like more and more like out of pocket at times. DK Metcalf's out there at some event with kids, and this kid comes out and starts saying that Jalen Ramsey is his dad or something, starts doing that crap. And DK came over and he was like respectful about it. He was like, what are you saying? He's like, and he's like, and who are you? And all the kids were like, he's like, I watched the film. He's like, I guess you didn't watch the film, actually, because the last time DK played Jalen Ramsey, he actually beat him for a touchdown at the end of the game. But, people and their facts, nobody likes their facts. Why do I says listening and reading to interviews with John Schneider? Geez, that man has no love of OGs. He really doesn't think they have much value. Yeah, I think it's the issue that cropped up, I think, about 10 years ago. Why do I? Which is, as defensive tackles started to get paid more, you had more of those big body dudes that want to go to the defensive line. It's not a sexy position, interior offensive line, right? When you're starting out in Pee Wee, nobody's, chomping at the bit to get down to guard. And so it just naturally, much in the way that running back tends to be an ultra talented position, even in the depths of the draft, the guard position tends to have a lot of leanness to it because of the fact that there's just not as many great athletes at the position coming out of college. And I think that this does then naturally cause the good ones to get overdrafted, to get drafted too high. And I can get the pickle that puts John in. I actually can have a lot of sympathy for it, because you'd love to see these linemen get better. I mean, you remember listening to why Tom Cable talk about it, and he was just apoplectic about it. He was like, these guys come out and they've been playing in spread systems, and there's not any really great athletes on that side of the ball anymore. And remember, they were getting all desperate to moving, because remember at that time what they ended up doing is they started moving defensive linemen to offensive line and trying to train them like they did with J.R. Sweezy, because there just weren't good enough athletes coming out at the position anymore to get it done. And it's continued to be a problem, and it's not going away anytime soon. But yeah, it doesn't seem like John's necessarily too hot to trot on trying to change his outlook for it and start going hard on that position. But it's also hurt them in recent years, having not dealt with it a little bit more. Kevin Mullen, thank you for the $2 donation. I appreciate you for that, Kevin. 3 guys at 16 that make you stay and pick. Go. The three guys that I would stay, that would make me stay in pick would be Brock Bowers, Talise Fuanga, and if Romo Odunze, if he fell, I would still take him at 16. Because I think you're getting Larry Fitzgerald at 16, to put it from a comp perspective there. But if he's not there to give you one other guy, I would go with Fatanu, Kevin. So let's if say Odunze is likely to be off the board there, Fatanu, Fuaga, Bowers. I'm jumping on any of those three. Blue and green zone, shot of NyQuil every pick trade. I might be getting loopy pretty fast if I wasn't already. And barcode Fatano at 16 is my dream scenario. Would trade down if him and Fashanu are gone. Can't go wrong stacking day 2 picks. No, you cannot. That is the ideal. But like you say, Fatano does make you go, I think I'll just take this nice one right here. This nice piece. Raising 5 kiddos. This is trade down and pick up a second rounder and then pick up that Barton kid. He could be the glue for the O-line. Super smart, a team player who can be smart glue to solidify the line. Smart glue. Sounds like a new product that's going to come along soon, you know? It's got nanobites in it. Okay. Yeah, man. Barton to me is another one that talk about an ideal is if you could move down twice, go like 16, 22, 22, 28, and then still grab yourself Barton with the first pick, and then you're looking at like 2 third-round picks. Now you got a second-round pick, and you took Barton on the front end of it. That would be tremendous. Tremendous. I'd feel so good about the upcoming. That'd be a good pathway for success in this draft, I think. MJ Daniel says, I wouldn't hate Penix. The Hawks have a need for a quarterback. They do. And we were talking about this last night as I thought about it more. I really do think that John Schneider wouldn't have any reticence in the least of holding on to 3 quarterbacks as we go into the future. I think he'd be perfectly fine with that. And I would as well. Brian P. shares the Fatano dream. Seen a lot of Fatano love here. I think we're going to have to run a poll here today at some point. See who people would love to see as the pick. JL says, just got here. Did you do his mock already? Yeah, I'll post up the mock if you just arrive in here again just now. I did 2 mocks. So we did one with the trade back with PFN's mock draft simulator, which I'll post here over my left shoulder again. We had Byron Murphy at 32. Came back, we traded with Kansas City. I got a future second round pick from Kansas City. I got a second round pick in this draft and then another pick later on in this draft. So we got Byron Murphy in the first. 32 is last on the board there in that one. 64 took Junior Colson. Came back at 81, took Tavondre Sweat. Went and dealt with the offensive line in round 4 at the top. Tanner Bortolini. Took the Will linebacker project and James Williams at 118. 131 grabbed Zach Zinter and his recovering from a broken leg. Man, he can get in there and duke it out with Anthony Bradford at the right guard position. Tip Ryman, tight end I like, dropped down this draft. I feel like he's a real good overall tight end in this draft. He's a great blocker. Man's 270 legitimately. He can move people off the ball. You put him out there with Farrell Brown next year in 12 personnel or throw George Fant out in there in 13 personnel. And I think you can do some damage, especially in the run game. Grabbed a running back at 192 and Blake Watson out of Memphis and another offensive lineman, KT Leviston, who's listed as an offensive tackle, but really is going to be a guard at the next level. So came out with a future second round pick, and these were my selections. I'd love this draft if it could play out like this. Did a draft too where I did not trade back. I just did it purely selecting. I did it try to purely select based on where Seattle would be leaning. So you came up to 16. There was no Byron Murphy there at this time. Teams love Cooper DeJean reportedly. I tried to lean into what we've heard a little bit about this. Cooper DeJean was the pick. Came back, got Cooper Bebe round 3. Ben Sinnott, his teammate out of Kansas State, who I think is the second best tight end in the draft, getting him in the 4th round. Brennan Jackson, power edge, in the 4th round as well out of Washington. And then a couple of inside linebackers in Nathaniel Watson and Jalen Ford, and Marcus Harris as defensive lineman. I certainly love this first mock, in my opinion, much better than the second, but I wanted to kind of try to run 2 and lean them in the direction of where I think John might lean if he was sitting there as well. As much as I could. Snail, thank you for the $5 donation. And Snail, I got a Coug on there, man. I got a Coug on one of those mocks for you, bro. Thank you for the $5 donation. He says, calling my shot. Caleb and Michael Penix are busts. May and Daniels are at least okay. Nix and JJ, depends on where they land. Seahawks take Cooper, fancy mustard first. Excuse me. Seahawks take Cooper, fancy mustard first. All right. I'm with it. Cooper definitely could be the fancy mustard could be it. As I put it out there, wouldn't shock me between Myron Murphy and Cooper at this point. But history has taught us a couple of these quarterbacks will succeed when there's this many taken in the first round. A couple will just be okay, and a couple will probably suck. You know, who's going to be what when it's all said and done out of this year's draft? It is hard to say on this one. Oh, poor girl. You okay? Okay. I think she's a little sick too. Maybe. A little sneezing going. Pumpkin makes an appearance. I am in a new location. I have arrived south. I'm right near the border. But thank you for that $5 dono, and Snail, I could see it. I think Caleb's definitely got that wide variance on where he may be, and Penix, I think a lot of his success is going to be really beholden to the type of offense he's put into, and then also the offensive line in front of him. I think it's fair to say. I do have a little more faith, I think, in Penix to be than Nix, but Nix can go out there and kind of just carry the water and be fine. You know where I stand on JJ, Snail. You know where I stand on him. Michael Cam says, don't be surprised if the linebacker we end up taking is Jeremiah Trotter and not Cooper or Coulson. Also, some of the OLM they'll take will be Bo Limmer or Mason McCormick. Don't say I didn't tell you so. Mason McCormick definitely is in play. I could see that there, Michael Cam. Bo just doesn't, I don't know if he moves well enough for them on that side of it. I think Bo, too, is just a pure center, whereas McCormick's obviously a guard. And Cooper's definitely in play. It wouldn't shock me. Ravens worked with some undersized linebackers. The Wolverines worked with the other kid, not Coulson, who's obviously got good size, but the other guy, Michael Barrett, 6 foot tall, sub 6. So they're not going to necessarily shy away, I think, from a lack of size with Trotter. I could see that being definitely the pick as a possibility, especially because those other two guys might be off the board. And you're talking about late 3rd round, Michael Cam, if they can't trade back, then, Trotter may be the best inside linebacker you have at that time. Ricardo says the Texas game also got me excited for the Grub offense. Penix gets rid of the ball so fast in that offense, and the pass rush has no chance to reach him. It really does a good job of, like a pitcher, Ricardo, because sometimes the spread stuff can get a little bit too much in the, we're going to throw everything off speed. And what I mean by that is it's, bubble screen, quick little slant, quick little drag, a reverse back this way. It all becomes really fast striking stuff. Get the ball in the guy's hands quick. And the defense starts to get a rhythm for that. And it starts to having some diminishing returns, I think, as the game goes on when you're too heavily incorporated into that mold of a spread system. And with you've got that ability to go to that deep stuff. And so much in that Texas game, Ricardo, was those, okay, we're working it short. And now he's going to take his shots over the top once he feels Texas starting to compress down on those zones. And that's where it gives a little bit of a unique wrinkle in the offense that I think some other spread systems don't always have. to be able to attack you over the top. But quarterback's best friend is as an offensive coordinator that can scheme open easy completions. There's going to be plenty of throws throughout the course of the game that are going to be high leverage, high difficulty throws. What you want to do as an offensive coordinator is, yes, call a great game plan that overcomes that defensive coordinator on the other side and what they're thinking, but then also that you're building in enough plays over the course of a game to give your quarterback some easy completions. Don't make everything him with Atlas and the world on his back, and he's trying to like lift everything up every time. You can make things simpler for your QB. And I think here in Seattle, for a long period of time, we haven't necessarily leaned on trying to make that happen as much. And that's the part I do look forward to, as you mentioned, Ricardo, in this Grubb offense, is that there's some more easy completions. There's more easy plays within it. It doesn't have to all look like you're going uphill all the time, offensively speaking. Why do I says, remember, Prince would smoke your ass on the court and then serve you pancakes. Pancakes. That's true. That is a quality comp. I liked it too, man. I liked it too. He'll bust your ass in high heels. Nick says, if we stick and pick at 16, what do we do to get back into the second round? You might have to give up a future or something. We might have to start to delve into next year's draft, potentially, to make that happen. Or find a way to package a player on the current roster to a team that would hold that with a good value. It's going to be hard. I think that's I don't have a clear path to do that, Nick, unless you're kind of robbing from next year to make it happen. Snail says, I really don't understand the Caleb hype, especially to the Bears, who can't develop quarterbacks. Well, I mean, to your point, he's going to Waldron. Doesn't exactly inspire necessarily confidence that he's going to take him to the next level. I think as much as anything right now, there's a feeling of the Bears are in a better position than they were a couple of years ago with Justin Fields. They've set the stage in a better fashion to be able to have a quarterback have success with some of the skill position players they have now, with the offensive line in place as it is right now, and especially if they go and reinforce that line in this draft. I've watched him for a couple of years. I do have him as my number one player in this draft. I understand the reticence from some with their outlook on him, but I think he's a fantastic player. And, while Chicago has messed up a lot of different quarterbacks, I think they're going to have to kind of work hard on this one not to get some value or productivity out of him. My change on him has really gone from one of where so many, I think, kind of linger on the bust factor there with Caleb. I more go to, I think there's actually a pretty solid floor. He just may not have the ceiling everyone was prescribing back a year ago. That's really where I stand with it on it. I think his mobility, and you fit him start forcing him fit into a little bit of structure offense, will be fine, but he's a guy with a wider amount of opinion on him too. Dude Bob, who's a player you've been seeing get mocked to the Seahawks that you think is a reach? Well, I do think Cooper DeJean at 16 is a reach. I love Cooper DeJean, but I don't love Cooper DeJean. That's a lot about the projection of the player there, I think, a little bit, putting him in there. But it's not far. He's not going to get past probably 22, so it's not a tremendous reach on that one. I think Barton at 16 is another guy that's a reach, where you can get Barton at probably 24, 25. You don't have to pick him at 16. Trying to think if there's another guy on here that I would put into that mode. Chop Robinson at 16 would be a reach to me. He should be going like 27, 20, 29 to some playoff team that thinks they can just at least fit him into just being he'll have that. Okay, if he doesn't be a starter, we'll rotate him in as a pass rusher, and he'll at least give us something from that. Another one is Terrion Arnold. I hate that pick at 16. That might be the one I would be most maddest with at 16, would be Terrion Arnold. He stopped out as a player, and I'm much more out of him than other people are, I think. Escalating entropy. Bears are trying to build hype for a new stadium. That's true. Well, they got a good time. They're in a better position to do it now. I mean, I'm not a big bearer guy as far as what they've done with their history, but they have set the stage in a better way now with where that line is and where that team is. Caleb's going to get a true chance at this thing, much more than I think a lot of other number one overall picks would get in a similar situation. I'm not saying that he's set up for success, but I don't think he's necessarily set up for failure either on the other side of it. Blue and green, I don't think we have a player right now currently worth a second that we could trade. I don't think you're getting, with the guys you could put out there as far as trade partners go, you might get a late third at the most, but more likely fourth, fifth, sixth round kind of compensation. King Bomber Brandon, you think it's possible we trade 16 for 36 and 40 to the Commanders and end up with Johnny Newton and JPJ? I do think that trade is very much a possibility. Yeah, I do, King. I could see John leaning into feeling like the value is right on that one. I think Newton is definitely a guy that's in play there. I don't know if I buy as much of the JPJ one, King Bomber, because of the lack of mobility and movement. JPJ would not be the type of guy I would think would necessarily fit to the spread scheme that we're going to want to run. He's not as comfortable moving out in space, and he just doesn't have he's 330 pounds. He's a great player, King. I do like him. I just wonder about the fit for him in a spread system where he's going to be called upon to go to the things and lean on the things that are the weakness of his game and not be able to lean on as much the good stuff of his game a little bit. Now, Grubb likes to run some of the power elements and stuff. That part will fit him, certainly. But, boy, I would worry about him having to pull and scrape down to the second level too much. You really want to keep JPJ right in there around the line of scrimmage and, stick him up on a one tech and he'll take a one tech for a ride one-on-one. You can peel the other guard out. So maybe some of that can be solved by that too, King, where they would just have JPJ be their nose tackle hammer, and then their right guard gets to pull down the second level, and you got a guy in Anthony Bradford that can certainly get down to that second level very, very easily at that point. JPJ is capable of doing that, I guess, the more I think about that. But I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't be mad about King Bomber. I'd be okay with it. Get the lines of scrimmage dealt with in this draft, one way or another, and start to, not maybe just in this draft, but as we go forward, understanding that's got to be some of the strength of this team to some degree, if possible. Holy Sangre, I'm going to miss the first 2 games of the season. I'm sorry to hear that, man. I don't know, Brian, if Draymond would net you a second rounder. I don't think his rep's quite there right now to do that. I think you might get like 4th or 5th for him right now. Chris is not wanting to trade players we have, but they could trade a DK. They could trade a DK, a Lockett, Howell, whatever would be appeal to other teams. Definitely don't want to trade, though, which makes trading back better. Amen. King Bomber says, L'Jarius Sneed went for a third. No way Draymond gets you a second. Yeah, the draft picks are just held in a little bit too high of they're being, looked upon as much as ever as gold. So you're just not going to get your value back in commensurate value for these kind of players of that, especially a player if he's coming down off of theoretically a bit of a down year. Haley says the only quarterback I like in the draft after watching a ton of tape is May. Super big gamble, but likely the highest upside of anyone. And with some time to sit, he could be special. I like May quite a bit as well, Haley. He's in my top 5 players. I have him ahead of the other quarterbacks outside of, I do still have Caleb as my number 1 guy, but Drake is my number 2 guy. So I do myself love a lot of what I see from him. I understand the holes that some look at in his tape. That's the difference between a guy having some holes in his tape he shows you versus he shows you enough of the flashes on a consistent enough basis over the course of, doing the evaluation of him that you go, okay, that he'll be able to build on those flashes. And everything you hear about him is he's got a tremendous work ethic, and he's going to give everything you want in the building as far as that goes. So May is my number 2 QB as well, and be interesting to watch where he does land. As again, we're hearing now late, it seems like, Haley, that the Commanders are more playing around with the idea of going with Jaden Daniels at that number 2. So maybe May ends up going to New England at that point. Jag Sports Talk with Jose says Penix doesn't get past 13 IMO. I don't think he is either. My final mock tomorrow, I'm going to stay strong on where I was a couple weeks ago on my mock, to your point, Jose, which is I'm going to put Knicks and Penix going Broncos Raiders. So I don't see those guys lasting in that range of things. And so I will, I believe where you're at on that as well. I think when it's all said and done, quarterbacks that are this good, that have been this productive in college, don't fall in drafts. We could talk all day about injuries or age, or I don't think the age stuff matters as much to NFL teams as much, quite frankly, when it comes to the QB position, a position where guys play till they're freaking 37, 38 years old. I think that's kind of out the door, is really any kind of real detriment, to be honest with you. If anything, it just means for NFL teams that, you don't have to sit less time. We can get you out on the field that much quicker. But I still think that, like you say, Jose, that at the end of the day, they end up getting taken ahead of us. We'll see, though. Blue and Green, shaking my head. If you think Schneider will give up future picks and a player like DK or Gino, or who? Yeah, I don't think that he will either on that. Raising 5 kiddos. I would like the Seahawks to take Jack Westover somewhere in the draft. Soft hands and can catch anything thrown his way. He'd be a great red zone target. Yeah, I liked watching Jack's tape a lot. I walked into it thinking I was going to be looking at a UDFA guy or shouldn't be drafted. I ended up putting a 5th round grade on Jack Westover because I actually thought his blocking was a little bit underrated as well. He's not a monster. He's not going to throw guys around at the line of scrimmage, but he more than did his part as a blocker out there to make me feel like he can give you a little bit of something as kind of an H-back guy. And later on this draft, 6th round, you can kind of fall in there, or late 5th. I wouldn't hate it with Jack. I like him. And like you say, very, very soft hands. He's going to catch it. Like he's got stickum on him. Holy's hand grenades. B, well, you well enough for democracy, you're going to pass out after the stream. I probably pass out because I'm fighting off this. I do want to fight for democracy and kill some bugs, but I am definitely fighting off a bit of a cold here after this move that's got me a little bit just kind of trying to catch my breath and whatnot. But I want to get back to playing here. So once we get out of this draft, I'm definitely going to get up there and get it on. Fresh says, Texas duo and James Williams, my favorite picks from your draft. Thank you, Fresh. Appreciate it, man. I like this draft. I've done a lot of mocks, and this one I would feel so great about this. And, don't forget with it, Fresh, we got Junior Colson right up the middle. So, we've strengthened up our middle. We've got our linebackers of the future. I mean, you got guys that can grow and build together if you're able to get these 4 guys kind of all through. I would feel fantastic that we've given Mike McDonald's defense the baseline of players he needs for it to start to work and mold together for the future. But appreciate you. Ricardo says, Penix does not do well when he is moving side to side in the pocket. He can sidestep and step into the pocket. Rolling to the left, right is a struggle for him. That is a big weakness. I wouldn't push back against that at all. I'd agree. Yeah, that's the move. He's got to get better at moving both back and left on the move. And he's got to get better about throwing on the move too, Ricardo. He's got to those are the big parts in his game that need improvement. And maybe they're not something that there is room for growth at this point in him to be able to do it. But, that's the part where there's too many times where you're moving to your right and you cannot get your accuracy in the right place of those throws. And wildly so at times. Free Truth says, I'm just saying we're going to make a statement this draft. And it may not pay off for 2 seasons, but we will win. I love it. Let's go. Why? The highest Sean Snyder ever drafted an offensive guard is Posick in the 2nd round as a center guard. I'm with you that Barton or JPJ would be great snags in the 20s. Just don't think JS will do it. No, he just doesn't tend to. I think he ends up feeling like he's overdrafting them for the scarcity of the position, and I think that makes John's butt sweat. Ricardo Penix can also run for 1st downs. He's pretty fast, but only in a straight line. Yeah, I wish he would use, he's much like I get with Gino at times. Like, you can use your legs, buddy. Take the free and easy 7-8 yards sometimes. They get too caught up at too many moments of trusting the arm and having the arm do everything. It's just like, go get the simple 7-8 yards rather than trying to fit the ball in a tight window 30 yards down the field on the run. Jason Peters says, Sweat's not a high character guy for the Hawks. No thanks. Definitely the DUI and some of the character concerns can end up removing him off the Hawks board completely, as he probably has on a couple of other boards. I will say, Jason, there has been times that John Schneider has overlooked other guys with the DUI stuff. So that's why I still kept him on my my final mock. Brian says, look at the teams after 16 that have 2 second rounders for the trade down. Best shots, hopefully. Hopefully. Swedish says, B, sorry I missed what your draft plans are. It'd be cool if you and Brendan did a draft co-stream. We're going to Swedish do post draft every day. So we each are going to kind of do our own individual streams, but once we get to every day we'll do a post draft stream together. So we'll definitely do those and obviously do a lot of coverage on that, but we'll probably just do our own little separate things. We each got our own little things we do on draft day. So, but we'll definitely be doing a hookup after each day for sure. You'll be getting a lot of Hawks Nest and Jack Brandon here in the next couple days on the channel. Addis says, I can for sure see us drafting a safety. Yeah, I can see it too. Everybody you got right now in that, both with safeties and linebackers right now, everybody's kind of on a 1-year deal, or it's Jarek Reed who's coming off an ACL. Jackie Treehorn, hey B, I'm smelling a trade with the Eagles or Green Bay. Do you think Darius Robinson is a decent pick there or still too high? Darius Robinson would be a highly controversial pick at 16 for the Hawks for many Hawk fans. I really like him as a player though, and I really trust in what he's going to be able to bring to the field at the next level. Many look at him and go, okay, well, this is a guy that'll slide 3 tech eventually. I think he can be that hard edge that's necessary in this McDonald defense. And I think he's the best hard edge in this class. So when you look at this class, in my opinion, you have Darius Robinson, a little bit of Chris Braswell to a small degree, Marshawn Nealand, Brennan Jackson, Braden McGregor. These are your, big hard edges that can set those hard edges, and you're not going to move them off the line. And, it's something that's kind of a necessity for this defense. So Darius gives you, I think, that better than any guy in this draft. He manhandles tackles off the edge. Like, they just cannot block him. But to take him at 16 is definitely going to be a little bit high. Didn't test well, and I don't know if I trust as much as Future is going to be able to move inside and do a lot of 3-tech stuff inside. It might, but he did really a lot of his stuff out there at Missouri off the edge, so it's hard to predict. I love Jackie Darius, though. He'd be one of those guys I certainly would pound the table for in this draft, despite the testing numbers, because the guy's power and strength is going to translate, and he's going to be hard to block. You're not going to move him in the run game. And while it's not exciting for a lot of Hawk fans to have a guy that first pick's going to be a hard edge, that, this is really where, McDonald's defense starts. We want to stop the run, and in stopping the run, we want to set hard edges. You can't pitch outside. You can't get to the edge of the defense. You got to feel like everything you do is in between the tackles, and then we're going to really crush down that as a secondary. So makes sense if they go that route, but you could definitely trade back. You don't have to sit there on that one. Why do I? Says, here's my prediction. John Schneider sticks and picks at 16 and then moves 81 up to the second using 2025 picks, knowing he has to comp picks coming next year. What do you think? I can see it happening. Sure. I feel like John has got to have a burning desire to get back in that second round, come hell or high water. Why do I? So if he's got to do that by grabbing next year's picks, I would understand it. I think that there's going to be a little bit of a hesitancy in reaching for next year's picks because it's going to be the last of the COVID extra inclusion year, meaning that after next year, you essentially get your draft classes going back to a more normal number and state. We've had a kind of an extra inflow these last couple of drafts because of that extra eligibility year those guys got. So that would be maybe one thing that affects it, but John's got a guy that he likes that's dropped, and go. Raising 5 kiddos. If Lockett isn't getting traded, then this has to be his last year because there's no way the Seahawks can give him $30 million next year. Yes. Yeah. He re-signed with the Seattle and took a very team-friendly deal, raising kiddos, where he gave them that exact out. Seattle came back to him and said, okay, we're giving you less money this year, and you're still going to make a decent amount, but this is going to be probably your final year. And when you do look at the Seattle Seahawks cap situation next year, while I think they're 24th or something like that, they've got so much money that they can clear off the books without eating a lot of dead money. And in Lockett's case, that's included, where, like you say, it's, I think, $30 million on the hook, but you have only a $4 million dead money hit, I think, to get off of it. So you save $26 million collectively. So it will be the last year with Lockett this season. All Smokey says, hey, just got here in here. Who do you officially got us going 16 for us? If we stand at 16, All Smokey, I think it's one of three players. I think it's, I think I'd put at this point, Byron Murphy is maybe the hot guy that I'd put on there. So let's do it like this. We'll go 30% chance of Byron Murphy, 25% chance of Cooper DeJean, and, 20%. That doesn't add up. My numbers aren't adding up here. Don't do math when you're sick. It doesn't work. I think it's one of Cooper DeJean, Byron Murphy, or Troy Fatano. I think those are the three guys, if I was to say that sit at the top of the scale, if they're just going to sit at 16, that's who they would take, is one of those three. Pretty even odds across the board between those three as it stands right now, to me. Chris says, personally, think we'd have to give up more than just 16 for Green Bay's 25 and second. I'd love to be wrong, though. Same with Washington's 36 and 40. I think it gets hard to say on this kind of stuff with that, Chris, because some of it is impacted, I think, by how much competition there is, right? If you're just competing with Green Bay, Green Bay is just competing with itself to move up to 16. They can stand there and say, well, we'll give you a third and a fourth. We don't want to give up our two. But if you've got Green Bay that's fighting it out and duking it out without Washington, and Washington's there with their 36 and their 40, and they're saying, well, we'll give you this. And then you can maybe come to Green Bay a little stronger and say, give us the two. I think that's really what would drive that. Why do I says, I heard that Latu has medical concerns with his foot. Every year these reports come out the week of the draft. Yeah, it's very interesting, the timing. Why do I? Very interesting, the timing. Clivic, B, do you have any thoughts on Spencer Rattler or Jordan Travis? Sorry, I had to leave the stream yesterday or 2 nights ago. Yeah, I like Jordan Travis, I think, just a little bit better than Rattler if they were both healthy. The fact that Jordan's coming off the injury does put him just behind Rattler, I think, but they're very close to each other. I never have quite gotten as much on the Rattler train as some other folks out there have. Some really, really love him out there. I think he's had to deal with a high pressure rate this year at South Carolina, and I think he dealt with it well. He didn't have the greatest of offensive lines. He kind of had only Leggett out there to throw to for the most part. But he did a great job, and he can really spin it. No doubt about that. But he's really undersized, 6 feet tall, runs a 5 flat 40 just about, so he gives you almost nothing as far as athleticism or escapability. And the arm is just about really bottom line average, NFL average at best. So I don't see really where the upside is in Rattler, to be honest with you. And with Travis, he can move. He's got escapability. He's got improvisation, and he's missing some arm strength. He'd be a below average arm strength quarterback, but could he become a Brock Purdy-like guy? Yeah, I think Jordan Travis could. And so I that's why I do like him a little bit more between the two, but the injury does, ding him a bit. Cole Churkus says, how would you feel about Jordan Travis, and what round would you take him? I would take him late fourth. I would not take him early fourth round. Late fourth round, fifth round is where I would pick him. If I've got a prospect like that coming off that leg injury like he is, that's got to push him down just a little bit for me and where I would take him. But he's a really good player. As I said, he could be a Brock Purdy type guy, I think, where Purdy doesn't have the strongest arm, but he makes it work with his sense of anticipation, accuracy in his throws. Love with Jordan Travis. I think he throws as good a go ball as anybody in this draft. And he's going to be a guy that can really maximize big, tall guys out there on the outside where he can throw it up and put it in a place where only those guys can get it. And that's what he did for Johnny Wilson, and that's what he did for Coleman on those throws where he's just putting it in a real exact place, much like Penix does, where you're throwing away from the leverage of the coverage. And it's a subtle little thing, but does show up on Travis's tape over and over again. Tristan Holm, thank you for subscribing. I appreciate you for doing that. Snail, thank you for another $2 donation. Says, tell me JJ wouldn't be okay with Peyton or McVay, B. Well, I mean, Snail, this is a tough one for me because you understand I have a heavy reticence on belief in JJ McCarthy. I don't think JJ McCarthy has Jared Goff's talent level. So when a guy like Sean McVay, for instance, has been able to have his offenses executing with Goff and Stafford. I think that there's a difference in talent level between Goff and Stafford versus JJ McCarthy. You're talking about 2 number 1 overall picks versus a guy that's not going to be that. So I can't quite get there in thinking that McVay is going to turn chicken, chicken S into chicken soup. I don't see McVay pulling that off. I think McVay has shown, if anything, that he requires a high-level talented quarterback for his offense to go. And when he had, Baker Mayfield out there at the end, it wasn't doing anything fantastic there with Baker. It was like, it was okay. Sean Payton with JJ. No, I would have had a higher grade on Drew Brees coming out of Purdue than I do on JJ McCarthy. And I'm fully open to take the slings and arrows of being wrong. I think that that's what you actually have to do when you do this evaluation process. It doesn't have to be about, looking for the ways to protect yourself from failing at your evaluations. It's to get better at the evaluation process, but to also trust what you see in the tape. It's the thing I came back to where when I've had evaluations in the past and I've had people try to kind of talk me past my evaluation point or allowing the noise to kind of leak in versus just trusting what I saw, I went wrong. That's where I messed it up. But when I trusted in the instinct of what I was sawing and I leaned into it, that's where, and more often than not, I'm doing this for 5 years for me, Snail, I've come out to be right on it. So when I look at JJ McCarthy, I trust in my evaluation of him. And could he be functional in a Sean Payton offense? Sure. Do you pick top 12 to get a functional quarterback? I don't think you do. I think you can get that later on in the draft, which is why I have a later grade on JJ. But I don't think that he processes like Drew Brees processed. I don't think that he's going to go through multiple reads like Drew Brees did. He's got more mobility than Brees did, for sure. But I don't think his ball placement is like Brees. Maybe their arm strength is kind of similar, but I'm just not a believer in JJ McCarthy. And I especially this late of the hour, it's not going to sway now for me, but I just look at it and I go, I don't see it with this guy being one that is going to make it happen at a level that's past just being a functional player. Then again, if you're taking him that guy in the first round, I think that you're highly overdrafting at that point if that's what you're doing. But I could just be a hater on JJ too. I got to own that too, Stale. I seem to be kind of on my own on this little boat out here. There's not a lot of people on the JJ sentiment, it seems like, at this late hour. Gelvin says that cat's a girl. The cat is a girl. Why do cats like them all? She's a girl. Chicken God says Caleb Williams could turn out to have a toxic personality, and that would be a huge problem. Yeah, if you got a quarterback that's toxic from a personality standpoint, your locker room is going to crumble. That's for sure. Raising 5 Kiddos says, are you kidding me? Caleb Williams couldn't hold Prince's jockstrap. I think it would be more like hold his G-string, wouldn't it? And that wasn't the word that couldn't hold his... Why do I? If Seattle does draft Fatano, I see a major incitement for what they think of as an Abe Lucas's knee. You don't draft him to play offensive guard. I see it as a major draft for what they think of Abe. Oh, good possibility. Yeah. I mean, I certainly think they could end up looking at it in that way, that it's a bit of insurance for Abe. I would absolutely say that that's something that you could take away from that a little bit. I think it doesn't necessarily have to mean that they don't look at him as well as being a guy that can be an upper level left guard in this league too. But certainly the Abe side of it is going to factor in, I think, in the background of that decision. Will Green says, no, Knicks will be a good with timing offense. He's like Tom Brady and Drew Brees, everything on time. Yeah. I think I like Nixon less. I like Nixon more with the Broncos than I like JJ. But I have a higher grade on Knicks than I do of JJ. He says, I'm not down with JP Jared Newton. Yeah, we're going to do the salary cap, how the salary cap works thing just after the draft. Definitely still have that in the planning stages to do. For sure. Holy hand grenade. 100%. Raising Kiddo says, Caleb seems immature. The question is, what happens after Caleb gets some adversity? Is he going to work his butt off to be a dedicated and have the Mamba mentality? He doesn't strike me as that kind of dude. Maybe it's a reason. Maybe going to be risky with that. I mean, and I'll say we haven't seen as colorful a kind of quarterback coming in this league maybe since like Manziel a little bit, and that didn't work out great. So these worries might be real. I do think we've got to take a little bit of the factor into, like, you know, as far as dealing with the adversity. You know, he didn't start at Oklahoma. He had to beat out Spencer Rattler, you know, to get that job. And when you go to USC, he didn't have a lot of supporting staff there and help there over the last couple of years, having to kind of at times Superman stuff a bit to too much of a degree, I would say. But that's where I come down in my evaluation, is still loving the kid in the bottom line of it, even though I have an understanding of everybody's worries and concerns, and I wouldn't just try to, like, that's not nothing. That's just, no, it's something. It's something. I'll give it some gravitas. But the talent's too good for me. Since he stepped on the field at Oklahoma and I watched him take over for Spencer Rattler, and watching the difference in level of play between those two guys in that same offense, in that initial moment he walked on the field, kind of sold me onto him through the process as a player. And I can't twist off of it now, but I understand the worries that are out there for sure. Thomas says, honestly, I feel Woolen could be traded, but that depends if DeJean or St. Estrell come in. It's possible. You never know with that one. I mean, that's the guy, if you post anybody that I think has the highest possibility between Draymond and Tariq, I think those would be the two guys on the roster as far as potential tradable assets. Isaac Wesley, yo, B, long off season, but us 12s have something to cheer about tomorrow. Draft day. Who we picking and who should we pick? Go Hawks. Well, I did a final mock where I saw us potentially going for Byron Murphy, Junior Colson, Devondre Sweat. I wouldn't have any problem with going with this mock myself, Isaac. I think it would be a pretty strong one. I think in general terms, beyond getting caught up on individual players, I would just say that, you know, you got to deal with your lines of scrimmage here, and getting the offensive line, the interior of the offensive line, in a better place, getting better in your front seven between your linebackers and your defensive line. I think that these have got to carry a little bit of an onus in the background of what they think about and the manner in which they go. And I don't think that should drive them to pick for need, but it should be something in the back of Schneider's mind as he's going through this process. And if he's doing that, then I think they'll have a great draft. But it's less to me about the exact players I want to see him pick and more about, let's get these lines of scrimmage fixed. Let's start trying to maybe turn this interior, this offensive line, into, instead of being the most glaring, horrific weakness that we have on this team going back for a couple of years, let's try to make it a strength. And let's button down this defensive line. It's not, it doesn't need as much necessarily as across the board, but we could definitely snipe in a few things, snipe in a few picks that are just right to then round that out as well. And then we can build the rest of the team out of those two theoretically growing pluses. Haley says, I hope May doesn't end up in Denver. That hellscape will ruin him. Go to the pinhead, Sean Payton. I said 3 and throw it. He ain't making it to that. I think the bottom line as it gets down to Drake May on it, Haley, is, you know, he ain't lasting past 5 in this draft. And, you know, maybe Jaden Daniels goes ahead of him, but he ain't lasting long after that. And if New England isn't going to make him the pick at 3, I guarantee there'll be a team at that point that'll be probably chomping at the bit to trade up to go get him then at 3, if they're not going to make him in. So he's going to go. And the NFL's playing this one, slow playing this one a little bit, but I'm not buying into it. My raising 5 kiddos, I just don't really see Marvin Harrison Jr. with the Cardinals and have to see him 2 or 3 times every year. I think it's going to be inevitable at this point. I don't think the Cardinals are stupid enough to do Malik Neighbors. Though if they were, wouldn't that be hilarious? Oh my goodness. Never talk about dodging one right there. I think Malik will be a good player too, but I know Marvin Harrison will be a good player. Think first, no. Brian's got May going to Washington, huh? Daniels Falls. Supposedly Washington's narrowing in on Daniels. Thomas, right now I have Rattler, Travis, then Milton. I rather they trade up, but they will not, and people wonder why Seattle is always middle of the road. A lot of people looking for the trade up, that's for sure, Thomas. That's the order I've got them in too. Ricardo says Jack Westover was another player that was interesting to me in that game, Texas game. And Jatavian Sanders was a beast of a tight end. Jatavian's really good. Got a second round grade on him for sure, Ricardo, and I feel solid in that. And Westover, more tape I watched, the more he grew on me, including that Texas game. You know, when you throw him the ball, he catches it. It might be at his shoes. It might be almost over his head, and he might have to climb a couple of extra inches he doesn't have in his vertical leap, but he will make the catch. And especially on how many catches last year was it? Was like 4th and 1. Got to make the 7-yard catch where he's jumping back across his body, or 3rd and 8, you know, and he's got to make the grab and keep his feet. You know, it had so many of those big time catches last year. Swedish Shinobi says, I've never wanted to have John's butt sweat in my head. Thanks, B. Well, it was in mine, so now it is in yours. Thomas says, Seattle can't bet on hoping to lose more than 10 games when they haven't done that since 2008, especially when Grubb and McDonald know about these quarterbacks better than most teams. Indeed. Kyle Kreitzer says, Hawks Nest, how can Caleb succeed with Waldron calling his plays? The NFL views him as some guru, but they must have been watching different games than us. Anyway, go Hawks. I guess the theory would come into play on this, Kyle, and I'm not saying I necessarily 100% buy into it or I know one way or another on it, but I guess let's just say if I'm Waldron here and I was telling you this, he'd probably tell you something like, you know, I came to Seattle with my Rams offense, and Coach Carroll then proceeded to take my playbook and throw it in the trash and tell me that I was going to run their offense. And I think, well, Waldron had some inventive design, especially with the 2 and the 3 tight end looks in shotgun, where they're in shotgun next to Geno, like they're running backs. He would do those kind of inventive little things here and there. I think at the end of the day, it was still not the offense being allowed to run the way he wanted to run it from the Rams. And I think there's a lot of proof to this, Kyle, that goes back to even the time of looking at when Schottenheimer was brought aboard and reportedly had to inherit 70% of the playbook when he was coming into the facility. So saying it ain't a means to knock Carroll or to let Waldron off the hook. It's just to be that it's very hard to evaluate an offensive coordinator if you're not letting him run his playbook. And I don't think that Waldron's a good play caller, Kyle. I'm not saying that. I'm not making the case that everything you say, I'd still lean into. If I'm a betting man, I got to put my bet one way or the other. I'd bet on the side of him not being good. This is one where I would lean more to just trusting the Chicago supporting cast as far as where the talent is at, to be able to allow Caleb to become whatever he's going to be able to become. That he's not going to be held back necessarily by scheme or by his talent, and that he gets to lay the blame at that. It's going to be on him solely, whereas there's other quarterbacks going into other situations where maybe that's not going to be as much the case. You know, I mean, Drake May goes to New England. It's like, well, who does he have to throw to? How's that? What kind of shape is that offensive line in right now? So it's I certainly don't have a lot of faith in Waldron, but I do think Waldron also got much like Shoddy, and what's happened, to my point on this too, Kyle, is like, what happens when Shoddy comes back and becomes an offensive coordinator with Dallas this past year? It's like you get one of your better seasons out of Dak Prescott that he's had in his career, and I think there's something to that a little bit, in that when you're under the guys a little bit of with Carroll and how he wanted things run, that was going to inhibit you a little bit as a play caller. Raising 5 kiddos, Washington should trade Marvin Harrison. Washington should take Marvin Harrison and then trade back into the first round at 16 with the Seahawks and grab both Nicks or Michael Penix. I like that combo better than the gamble of May or Daniels. I would too. You got a little bit more of the certainty, at least in Marvin Harrison and Terry McLaurin. That'd be a hell of a 1-2 punch. Why do Ices, unless he has an all-pro year next year? Draymond Jones seems like an easy cap cut. Yeah. That's that thing I go along to where there's about 5 guys we could go through the list of. You have, when you look at their contracts next year and how John has set this up, he's set the stage to be able to have those deals come off and eat very little dead money, but you can create a substantial amount of money. I think when I was running through the exercise this offseason, there's about $100 million in workable cap space that you can clear up off of next year's cap without doing hardly anything. Like, there's very little dead money. But Ellie says, Penix reverse. I'm either way. I sign me up for either too, Benelli. I like those guys. Versus nice. Lee Lance's Cooper DeJean pick would make me suicidal. It's fair enough. That's fair enough. Chris Richards says, I think your brain's gone dead. There's no way they're going to take a cornerback at 16. They need defensive and offensive line help. That's where they're going to go at 16. Okay. Well, I'm sorry that somebody pissed in your Cheerios today, Chris, but I hope your day goes a little bit better. There's connections, heavy connections with the Seattle Seahawks and Cooper DeJean, Chris. Okay, so sometimes you maybe are able to trade back. Sometimes maybe you're not. Maybe Seattle has the full intention at 16 of moving back in this draft. And there's no team that's willing to make that offer. Now, they've met with DeJean. They have flown DeJean out to Seattle in studying the Seahawks drafts of the past, Chris. When they tend to fly people out to the facilities, it doesn't necessarily tend to be a smokescreen. There tends to be a real, true interest. He is a pure fit for this defense. I understand, Chris, that many like yourself would freak the F out if he was the selection at 16. But that is right around where he is likely to probably go in this draft. And just because average fans may not have as much of a good feel for Cooper DeJean or liking him as much, doesn't mean that that's where NFL circles are in. So though I don't necessarily love the brain dead comment on this, I think also maybe take into account a little bit of that I'm building this on the basis of also what I'm studying and hearing about through the league, not just what is my personal opinion on this, but what I'm taking into account of both the Seahawks' interest and what we're hearing about from the league. I do this for a living. I do it every year, Chris. I've tended to be pretty accurate in the past. My final mock drafts tend to be pretty close to the final players that are taken in the first round. So I'll lean on my back history with that, but sorry, man, that selection caused you to go so sideways in that way. Ricardo Travis is kind of a perfect for the Hawks because we don't need him for the next year. It's true. You got to sit on him and let him heal, let him get right. Ryan says Travis won't be recovered enough to start next year, according to reports. Yeah, that's where Ricardo says on. I think you can afford to give him the extra year. You know, you just keep him inactive. He's there, but you give him the year to just kind of fully recover. Thomas says, I saw Joe Milton, and I really can't get behind him. I feel he's inaccurate, even though he throws the deep ball really deep. Yeah, he has a hard time at times with the definitely finding the accuracy across the board, processing. The big arm is there, but you watch him play, and there's some things that are definitely missing in his game. Emerald Hayes, I love Penix, but don't see him as a Pro Bowl quarterback. Not even close. You're maybe above. Might not be. Depends on the landing spot with him for sure. What linebacker do you like in B? What round do you think he should go? Like in what linebacker do you like? I'm not sure what you're asking there. I'm sorry. What linebacker do you like in B? What round do you think he should go? One should go. You might have to rephrase that question on that one, my man. I'm sorry. I'm not sure on what you meant on that one. UE2K says JJ may very well be the next Tom Brady, but he's certainly shown enough in college to warrant a first-round pick. Any team that takes him in the first round is taking a huge risk and can only be using luck. You know, that's my stance on it as well. He certainly maybe has done enough to be a winner, and you know he's started a couple years, but I wouldn't want to be the general manager taking him in the first round. That's for sure. He says, damn, not shown enough. Oh, he's not shown enough. Okay, I was like, man, well, the first part of that didn't go with the second part of your phrase there. So, okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I don't think he's shown enough either. to be where he's at as far as productivity. He's done enough maybe as far as to be a winner, and that these guys, but even that on that, the more I think about that, I don't even like that, because it's like there's so many guys that have won and they don't get elevated in that way, where it's like, well, his skill set still, I don't care if he's won, his skill set is still his skill set, Emerald Hayes says, I love Blake Washington. Reminds me of Thomas Rawls when healthy. Yeah, he was a fun back for me on tape. I just loved it. He's had 3 years of great production. So elusive and hard to bring down the open field. And even if you're just kind of flexing him in as a kind of a change of pace back, I think he could be tremendous for you in that realm, and especially as kind of a later round guy. UDK is based on college performance. Penix is only second to Daniels. If he had a clean medical history, he'd be a top 3 pick. Probably would. Yeah. Probably would. Thomas, I don't know if Peyton will draft a quarterback. It's the Hal and the Seahawks and Wilson traded to the Broncos. Hard to see on that one a little bit, and certainly with their Wilson pickup here the past couple of days, that doesn't point to them taking a quarterback in this draft. I just feel like, man, it's going to be tantalizingly tough for Peyton not to take a QB if he's in a position to grab one where they pick, understanding that, they may have bigger fish to fry in future drafts to try to put the rest of this team together, going up against that dead money that they are going up against. Thomas Cox says, Westover reminds me of a San Francisco fullback. Sorry, I can't spell his name. Rathman? Tom Rathman? One of the all-time better fullbacks you'll ever find out there. Brian Myers says, B, pull the plug, get the hay. We need you 100% the next 3 days. Yeah, we'll wrap it up here in a short bit on this one. I'm not going super long tonight because we got 3 days of crazy town, that's for sure. Greg says, B, my dream is to move back, get Cooper, the fancy mustard, and then pick up a nice fly. That'd be good. Thomas, Dijon is like Witherspoon, but he is a safety, not a corner. Yes, he played corner, but basically it's a hybrid. It's either him or Colson. I would be ecstatic. Get out either of them on it. I do feel like, Thomas, there's a little bit of an opening upside to Dijon as a cornerback because he wasn't allowed there to play there his whole college career. I think part of the usefulness of Dijon is going to be his flexibility in the different roles he can play, but also that I do have some trust and faith in more than others do in his ability to play on the outside, being that give this guy a little more time to play out there and get used to that position. Part of what I think held him back, not this last year, but the prior year. He has 5 interceptions. He's a playmaker all over space, but he's being utilized everywhere. Linebacker, slot, free safety, strong safety, outside corner. Never really was able to kind of just lock into his position and go there until this past year. And he really took off at the corner position in that, first year there. But I like both those two guys. Raising 5 kiddos. If JJ was the quarterback of the Huskies and he played against the Wolverines, do you think he does better than Penix? No, but I don't think that JJ McCarthy takes the Washington Husky roster to an undefeated season. I think JJ McCarthy ends up with probably 5 or 6 losses on his record with the Huskies. I do. He doesn't have the ability to make the high-level throws that Penix did throughout the season, in my opinion. But this is where we come back to why my outlook on JJ is so low and why I just don't understand it with him. It's just like, the winner stuff is great. The leader stuff is great. At the end of the day, you got to make big boy NFL throws, and there is nowhere to hide on the NFL level if you can't do it. Oh, Kyle Juszczyk. Okay, I went way back. I like it. Kyle Juszczyk's a good one. He's probably not the open field. Kyle could give you a little bit of shake in the open field, but I like it. Chris says, the Hawks Nest, thoughts on Jalen Carlisle as a linebacker safety hybrid or Kenny Logan Jr. as a safety if they go in the 4th? Kenny Logan I wasn't as big on. Kenny Logan I'm definitely not there with Kenny. So when it comes to Kenny Logan, single high safety, does a little bit of a mixed role at times, but I think he's more single high safety. A little late at the snap, a little slow and coming off of his safety position. Instincts of just awareness aren't there. Didn't a lot of completions, but when you did throw it to his space, he gave up a lot, like 81% of the completed passes thrown in his direction. So with, he's to me just a bit of a limited back end guy. Now, Jaylon is a little bit of a different story. I like Jaylon a lot. He's in that mold of like James Williams is, where you're right. They're going to make the transition to linebacker. I don't think he's quite as athletic as James Williams is, but he's got incredibly long arms, 34.5-inch long arms. The stop and start flipping the hips, that stuff's going to be an issue, but you put him in at linebacker, that stuff gets mitigated a little bit. I think he can make the change. 20 reps on the bench, strong guy at 227. That's not super undersized anymore for the linebacker role. And again, you'd be moving him to the will. You wouldn't be moving him to the Mike in this defense. So a little bit more ability at that point, Chris, to just kind of run around and be free a bit. But I can't sign up with Logan. Logan, I'm out on. But Carlisle's, I'd do it. I wouldn't do with any of those two guys in the fourth, though. In Carlisle's case, I've got him as a fifth guy, so it's got to be a fifth round there. And Logan, I'm much later on him. Monica J. Kansas says, I don't think we need a quarterback, but Penix looks like maybe he develops into that guy. I don't think we should jump through hoops to take that swing, but if he's sitting at 16, how do we not take him? Well, Monica, great points. Fantastic points. I was trying to kind of push this forward yesterday, and I don't think I did as clearly and cleanly at times to the audience and trying to get across what I was trying to get across, which was just that beyond our personal opinion of Michael Penix and where our evaluation stands on him, that we have a guy in the room that very well could be pounding the table for Michael in a major way and has been doing so for months. And if he does land at your spot and you have that insider in the building, Monica, being Ryan Grubb, who has been doing that pounding of the table and standing on the desk and saying, this is the guy, this is the guy. Well, as you say, if you're Schneider in that position, how do you not listen to your offensive coordinator, who's not merely talking about a prospect that he's kind of wantonly fallen in love with, but actually he's talking about a guy that he's coached for the past 2 years, one-on-one. And that'd be a tough one. Why says Thomas Rawls ran like he did a huge line of coke every run. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Thomas says, heck, I saw Dijon also return punts in his highlights. Very talented. Yes, he would also give you a punt and a kick returner in addition to what he would give you on the defense. I think you would be using him in that aspect too, at least on the punt returns. Seattle might be set this year on the kick returns. Emerald Hayes has got Kenny McIntosh with 580 rushing yards, 870 receiving yards, and 10 touchdowns. I like it, Emerald. Let's go. Go. Going to call him Deshaun Mustard. Why do I says, has anyone seen the stats on J.J. McCarthy throwing to his left? It's horrible. Oh, I hadn't. I hadn't. But that tracks. Chris says, yeah, Logan's coverage isn't good. My buddy is higher on him than I am, and we were just discussing it. Yeah, he's, you just have some of those guys you turn on the tape and you do get maybe a quick kind of just, okay, but he's running a 4.69 40 with a 1.7 split. He's not big necessarily at 6 foot, 205. So the 4.53 shuttle, I mean, he's not giving you anything that's really, as I termed it in my notes, there's nothing really splashy in his game, and then he's obviously absent the speed and the quickness. But then he also aligns out to having a projectable place in the NFL as being more, single high safety. I mean, you can maybe slide him in and slap him in for some slot snaps, but he's running a 1.70 10-yard split. And you see, and I put in my notes, just there's a slowness to how he's moving that you also feel in addition to those testing numbers where it pairs up and you go, how is that going to work in the slot? So it's like, well, I got a free safety that runs 4.69. Kind of a far cry from the back in the day of an Earl Thomas going with a 4.37. And that's where I dinged him down and had a hard time seeing him with the upside. Why do I says, what's JJ going to do when the NFL takes away the right side of the field away? He's going to be stuck. Swedish Shinobi, Julian Love, and Dijon both being safety nickel capability would be exciting with Spoon's unique versatility and Woolen's potential. that could be something special. I don't know. Is it tomorrow yet? I agree. Part of the understanding with DeJean and his draw to Seattle and why Seattle's so interested in him, and yes, maybe even at that 16th pick. I'm not saying that this is what I would want to do as much as this is just something they could do because he is what they're looking for in their players. And it's something to where we as Seattle fans have to change our understanding of this. We've been fitted into a role here with defensive players in Seattle to, you're Cam Chancellor. You're going to be a box safety. You're Earl Thomas. You're going to be a center field safety. We're going to have big, long corners. They're going to play predominantly off coverage and bail drop to cover 3 post snap. And everything is very segmented and in its little category and here. And what we have to understand now is that McDonald wants to run a defense where my outside corner can do free safety stuff and strong safety stuff. And I can sneak him on into the box and he can get down there and tackle if I need him to be. I can play him at linebacker every once in a while if I want to show that look. And that's going to require the player that has that skill set, that wide skill set to make that happen. And DeJean does have that. And that's the draw to Seattle. That's why for some people that might be saying, well, he shouldn't be picked there. But that's why they might pick him there is that they look at him as that purified fit to the defense and what they want the players to be able to do. Kyle Kreitzer, man, thank you for the $20 donation celebrating your first super stream. And boy, what a big time way to celebrate it, my man. Thank you for the $20 donation. That's a very, very, very kind of you. I really appreciate it. He says, thanks for all the draft coverage this draft season and taking the time to answer all the questions. I'm going to hit the hay. Hopefully, we will get some great draft coverage. Good night. Well, I promise you tomorrow's going to be awesome. The next 3 days are going to be awesome. We're going end to end, and I'm going to go hard at this draft. You're going to get a lot of content over the next couple of days, and this is my second Christmas. I love the draft. I love it not just for what the players my team's picks, but also to see what these other teams are going to do and how they move and what their strategies are. It just is endlessly fascinating to me. I really do love it. And it's unique, I think, from other sports in that way. You go to a baseball draft and nobody's kind of on the edge of their seat in the same kind of manner. But as we've also seen with these drafts, Kyle, a great draft can turn around a fate so fast. A couple of great drafts can turn around a franchise so fast. And that's part of the reason that you want to be locked in on these times of year and what the Hawks are doing here, because if they get this right, it is so much more faster that we're able to slingshot our way back into becoming a contender once again, truly looking to become elite once again. It's on the back of this, not free agency, not necessarily making some great wild trade, but finding great value in the draft and just picking within the value-based mindset over and over again and see where the cards fall. But thank you, Kyle. It's been my pleasure doing this draft coverage. We will do this every single year, no doubt about it. Both me and Brendan, we love doing this type of stuff, and I love getting into this process in this way. As I say, it's just it layers upon layers of interest as you get into this stuff, and you can experience it any layer you want, but they're all interesting the deeper you go down when it comes to the NFL. Thank you, though, Kyle. Thank you so much, man. Very kind of you. Corey says, I want Penix, but I think he is a top 10. I certainly see him going inside of 16 too at this point, Corey. My final, and tomorrow we'll be starting a little bit early tomorrow. I will unveil my final first round mock draft, and we'll see how close I can come. I've done pretty good on the past couple of years. I think last year we had 26 of the 32 players taken in the first round, if I'm not mistaken on that. So we'll see if we can land on that again this year. Charge Ahead says, why did B move to San Diego? Charge Ahead, I moved to San Diego because we are, for the first time in my adult life here, after, kind of moving out, back when I was a youngster, we're kind of getting all of our family around in the same area. So this was an opportunity to be able to get everybody in the kind of the same place. We've been spread across the lands for a very long period of time. And this gives us the chance to, be able to lock this back in a little bit, charge ahead. So Thomas, I feel JJ could be good, but there's a lot of unknown about him. I think Nix is possibly better than JJ, and I hate saying that because I'm a Husky fan. Hey, I'm a Husky fan too. It doesn't make me happy saying Bo Nix is better than JJ. But, Thomas, when you got to pick between a Husky and a Wolverine, or not Husky, a duck and a Wolverine, the choices get tough. You know what I mean? It's picking between two enemies at the same time. Can we just drop them both into the water? But I do think Nix is ahead of JJ. I do. I will not be swayed. Justin Napolini says, we need Byron Murphy. Well, Justin, you'll be very happy to see that in my final mock here, with us draining back, we grabbed ourselves Byron Murphy. I like him too. If Thomas says, well, I feel sweet spot for Penix is 9. Seattle would have to go after him by pick 9, but the Broncos and Raiders will go after him possibly. I'll definitely have those two teams. I think I'm going to have them going to the Raiders in my final mock, Thomas. I will have Nix going to the Broncos. But yes, I think the odds are long that he does fall all the way in there till 16. I do. Haley says, hey, B, do you know if Hamilton was considered overdrafted by the Ravens? Also, I'm more confident in this front office than any year prior, given the expertise in the building now. Very hyped. Haley, you should be very hyped. An organization is built upon many different smart decisions and processes in place. You know, updated facilities, forward-thinking approach in regards to, you know, for instance, embracing the GPS models that are coming along and some of these advanced analytics, having offenses and defenses constructed to try to build in advantages for your players on top of that, operating from within a draft mindset of leaning towards value over the past couple of years. You know, you will never as an organization not make mistakes. Those will happen. But what you try to do over time, I think, especially if you happen to be in the case of John Schneider in a place for well over 13, 14 years, is you learn from your mistakes as you go along and you get better and you refine as much as you can to get closer to being right on your decisions when you come down to these matters, because you've taken care of as much stuff as you can take care of. And that's what also makes me so encouraged by the direction of this. As we finished off the season, I was in a place where I go, I can't ride in here with Carroll going forward to feel like I can tell you guys with honest, true honesty in my heart that this is a team that's going to be able to go anywhere going into the future. I just don't see it. And the team recognized, the ownership recognized that. And that's what I'm talking about here, where you recognize things aren't going right. You make the moves to fix them. Doesn't guarantee they're going to fix them, but you're being proactive. You're not just standing pat, hoping that like a penny that you're flipping, that you eventually come back to heads here. It doesn't work that way. You know, that's not how great, you know, franchises are constructed. That's not how great teams are constructed. When it comes to Hamilton would have been, Haley, a top 6, top 7 pick. But then Hamilton went out and tested, and he tested really slow. I think you bringing up Hamilton brings up a really interesting point that I got into as far as a discussion with someone on this recently in regards to Tyler Nubin, where, Nubin tested even worse than Hamilton, but he's going to have a little bit of a drop too because of those testing numbers. But this is the part of the learning that I'm talking about too when doing this process of draft evaluation, is every year getting better at it. And I loved Hamilton and trusted in Hamilton in my evaluation of him, Haley. In fact, I have this on the book somewhere. We can bring out my old soundbite on Hamilton, is that I said he is by far and away the best safety in this draft. He deserves to go in top 10. Safeties don't normally deserve to go in that range. I don't care what his testing numbers were. This kid can ball. And I've gotten into some dates with people recently who want to still lean at times too much on the numbers, in my opinion. And not that they're tossing away the tape, but they're trying to load balance too hard on the testing numbers and letting it kind of cloud their view of the tape and what you saw. And when you watched Hamilton out there, Kyle Hamilton out there doing what he was doing for Notre Dame in that defense and how much space he covered, and you go, okay, well, he's covering all this space. I know what the testing numbers are telling me. I know the testing numbers are saying he's kind of slightly slow, but he's covering all of this ground. He's tackling wonderfully. His instincts put him in a position faster than it would put other players. So that was really a case study, Haley, about where those teams that lean to the testing numbers and those teams that go, yeah, testing matters, but the tape matters more. And that's why the Ravens draft so well, is that they're an organization that, while they'll certainly get their share of guys that test great, they're going to lean on the tape more than anything else to let that drive whether or not they take the player. And I do the same thing. That's why I would say with Tyler Nubin, I don't care if he ran super slow, you still would take him in the second round because the kid is an awesome player. In fact, he's very close to being a first-round talent, in my opinion, if not for the fact those numbers were just as bad as they were. But yeah, I definitely loved him a lot. I think a lot of people loved him a lot. But he was a guy that there was a lot of people, Haley, that said, okay, you didn't run these fast scores. You shouldn't even be in the first round now at that point. Lord Boom, Brandon, awesome job on the coverage up to the draft. Personally, I hope we get whoever we need. Laughing out loud, I'm going into this draft with an open mind. No expectations, new coach, new team, new season. Let's go. I'm doing the same. I am definitely doing the same from my standpoint here too, Lord Boom. So, we'll see if we'll see where they go with it, but I'm just going to be open-minded to it and hoping something great happens with it, AZ Hawker, Hawks haven't had a great track record picking the back end of the first round. Like to see them pick at 16, perhaps Verse or Murphy. Zinter should be available at 81, just my 2 cents. I love where you're coming from on it, man. Two of the guys that you just mentioned in your point there were two of the guys that I had in my mock draft. AZ Hawker. So I had Byron Murphy with them trading back. I don't know if he'd last till 32. He might not, but he did in this. I did the PFN one, which was supposed to be the most accurate one. So he did pretty good in that one. And then likewise, I had Zinter and I was able to take him at 131. I don't know if he does get into that. He'll definitely be there at 81 AZ, but I think you can wait a little bit longer on him too. Cause I don't think, though he's a good talented guy, if he lasts quite in, I don't think he's going to need to be taken that high to grab him, I would say. But I like where your mind's at, man. Same place here. Lord Boom, I'm also betting on Penix going to the Raiders. Yeah, I agree. Thomas says we'll definitely see if it was Pete Carroll in the Schneider era with the bad picks or if it's actually Schneider making the bad decision. But honestly, I'll feel great tomorrow. Me too, man. And we are going to get a lot more clarity about things on that side of things here as we go forward, Thomas, all the way around. Both personnel decisions, how contracts are given out, and how he drafts in addition to that. Thomas says Newman is good. Right now, we need talent at every position. Amen. Amen. And he's a good player. He can do it all. And a pure fit for this scheme. Daniel says Pumpkin has taken back the roost. She did. She's back in play now, man. She's back in play. So she's finally gotten comfy, I guess. I suppose. Emerald Hayes, can you post your mock draft again? And do you plan on making any more changes tomorrow? So we did, I think I do have it here. So let me bring it up. I'll give you my, this is the mock I ran a couple of weeks ago. Let me see if I can find it here. I should still have it here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. I still got it. So this is the mock for today, my final mock. Now, if we go to my mock from a couple of weeks ago, I had Caleb going number 1. I had Drake going number 2. Obviously, with the recent rumors, I'll probably move Jaden Daniels to number 2 and made a 3. I had Malik Neighbors going the Cardinals at 4, but I was just doing that for fun. My final mock will have Marvin Harrison Jr. there. I think it's kind of irrelevant too because I'm expecting a trade up by the Vikings with the Chargers. I think that's just too good of a fit between those two teams. So that would put make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see this here. So that would put either Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison at 4 and 6, basically, with the Giants out on the quarterback sweepstakes. They're going to take a receiver, I would think. But that takes J.J. McCarthy to the Vikings. The Vikings trade back with the Chargers to 11. You got Joe Alt going to the Titans, who need a left tackle. Dallas Turner goes 8 to the Falcons. The Chicago Bears need help at left tackle. Olufa Shanu goes there. I had Troy Fatano at number 10 going here to the Jets because I felt like the Jets were going to look to try to find some, not only some reinforcement for Tyron Smith, because the guy's 37 years old, so you need some backup insurance for him, especially when you're going for it with Aaron Rodgers, but also for the interior, Elijah Vera Tucker, who's also been very injury prone. So in Fatano, you get to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, I think, which makes a lot of sense for me with that number 10 pick. I'd probably stay with this even tomorrow, even despite what we're hearing about the medical reports on Fatano. J.C. Latham then goes to the Chargers, right tackle. I think this could definitely be also a Brock Bowers pick there for Harbaugh. We'll see where I go with that tomorrow on my final one there. Bo Nix to the Broncos, Penix to the Raiders, Tualize Fuanga to the Saints. I think if you're looking for one guaranteed pick in this first round of one team that is going to take a position guaranteed outside of the Bears taking a quarterback or the Washington Commanders taking a quarterback, well, then it would be, in my opinion, the Saints taking a tackle because they need a right tackle, and my God, like bad. So Fuaga lands to them. They're happy with that. Romo goes to the Colts. Marius Mims is taken at 16 by the Packers, who trade with the Seahawks, who move back to 25, pick up an extra second-round pick in doing so. That takes Mitchell off the board with the Jaguars at 17, the cornerback. Bowers falls all the way to the Bengals at 18 in my scenario. Zerzon Newton, 19 to the Chargers. This could also be Byron Murphy, of course. You can flip either out. It's a little bit like the Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors thing. It could be either or here. Jackson Powers goes to the Steelers to help solidify their line. Cooper DeJean, 21 to the Dolphins. Terrion Arnold, 22 to the Eagles. Jared Verse, 23 to the Vikings. Brian Thomas goes to the Cowboys. The Seahawks take Graham Barton out of Duke. They get their guard center guy for the future there. Kool-Aid McKinstry, 26 to Tampa Bay. Byron Murphy, 27 to the Cardinals. Adonai Mitchell, his teammate, goes to 28 to the Buffalo Bills. Laiatu Latu goes 29 to the Lions. Cooper Bebe, 30. 31, Tyler Guyton to the 49ers. And Ladd McConkey goes to the Chiefs with the final pick in the first round. So this was my one I ran about 2 weeks ago. I put this one together. And the final one's going to look probably pretty similar. I'll probably flip out Byron Murphy for Zerzon Newton. I think that I could see the Chargers doing that one instead. But again, I think even if they do that, when you start going down the line here, you end up then probably finding that it's always hard to pick in the back in the first round. But I think then you find you still will get Newton probably taken somewhere along the lines in here. It could be the Cardinals. That pick would make a lot of sense at that point if they want to do it there. But I do think the two defensive tackles end up going in the first round when it's all said and done. So there'll be a little bit of change tomorrow on the final one. Final one will be moved around a little bit. I might have Bowers going to the Chargers. I'm going to be doing a little bit of research tonight on what I'm hearing about from different teams out there. But see how it goes. Why do I? The most overrated things, the NFL is the 40 time and quarterback arm strength. Different of 2 seconds over 40 yards is easily less important than read and react quickly. Yeah, I agree. I think it gets held very much in too high a claim. Why do I? How often are you really running 40 yards on a given play? Thomas Cox is almost every draft I did double dip on D-line and O-line. I did as well, man. I don't know if I did. I don't think I double dipped on the D-line on mine, but I did. I did the same thing you did, man. So I guess great minds think alike. Doing the same thing. Thomas says, what's your opinion on Brendan Rice, McMillan, and Luke McCaffrey? Brendan Rice is a guy I'm not quite as high on as some other people are out there. I think that if I was to make my pick between those guys, I'm a bit more Luke. I think in my final big board I had actually Brendan ahead of Luke, but I think I might like Luke really in his upside a little more than I like Brendan Rice. Brendan Rice, I think, was held back a little bit, and then he's a really good on-time receiver. He'd be a great receiver to go to like the Chiefs, in my opinion, Thomas, because he's really precise in his route running and footwork with it. And he understands how to pace his routes and do that type of thing to set up separation. But then he's got Caleb Williams that he's playing with, which is a lot of off script, off time. He gets open on the slant and Caleb doesn't want to throw it. So he wasn't really well suited to Caleb Williams with his skill set. He needs to go to more of an on-time kind of quarterback, a Kirk Cousins type of quarterback. And I think Brendan Rice can find some success as kind of an intermediate threat, as a maybe a guy that can grow into becoming a number 2 guy. I don't think he's ever got any real high upside to him, but I think he can potentially take the reins as being a number 2 guy with his skill set. Jalen McMillan's going to be a slot at the next level, a big slot at the next level. Obviously, this past year was held back quite a bit by the injury situations and not being as healthy as he was the prior year when he really balled out. But another good contested catch guy in the slot, a guy who's really a smart route runner and understands how to sit down in zones, and a guy that gives you a little bit of a rare ability to be able to take the top off a defense out of the slot. I don't think he gives you a lot from a yak standpoint. Neither does Brendan Rice really. But Jalen's solid. I've got a late third, fourth round grade on Jalen right now, somewhere in that neighborhood, third, fourth round grade with him. And Luke McCaffrey, I just really like his upside. The thing to consider with Luke, in my opinion, Thomas, and I probably on my final big board should have put him above both these two guys we're talking about ahead of him. But I really do like the fact that you think about this kid, he's former quarterback who then became receiver. And that's got to open up that much more room for him to have more and more upside to grow over time a bit in his game. But I thought he was really good on the tape. He looks a lot like his dad on tape, Ed McCaffrey. He's got that upright running style. He will go up and catch it in traffic without any fear whatsoever. He can catch it out away from his body, strong hands, really good route runner. He actually gives you a little bit of something after the catch, as he showed with the testing times and what you see with him with the ball in his hands. I think he's ran a couple of more than his share of fly sweeps out there at Rice. So really full skill set there with him, Thomas, and I think he can play on the outside. Brendan's an outside guy, and then Jalen's more of a slot guy. Ricardo says, did you see Daniel Jeremiah's first round mock? Seahawks taking Terry and Arnold? Barf. That'd be the one that would make me most mad, Ricardo. That would be the one that I would have the hardest time with. I can't do Terry and Arnold. And I've gone to my buddies that are former cornerbacks and some of the people I lean on for opinions at times when I'm watching stuff. Hey, you're seeing this thing too? And, they were in the same place I was with them, where it's just like, no. Why do I? They say we are all talking about Romo. It seems like he won't hit past 9. We will see. Yeah, I don't think he lasts too long. That Colts would be the farthest he drops, but I could see him definitely being taken inside of that. Corey says, if no Penix at 16 and Byron Murphy's sitting there, I would take him. We don't need Murphy going to the Rams. I won't be mad at the pick, Corey. I'm okay if they take him at 16. I get it. I completely get it. Thomas says, now, if the Raiders pick Arnold at 13, I saw a mock that had the Raiders pick him. Do you think Seattle stays and picks Penix? I don't have a good feeling on Seattle's interest in Penix quite at this point. They've not shown their hands, Thomas, and I don't know what the bottom line outlook is from Grubb. I think Grubb's in a position where, your job's on the line in that, making that kind of call on Penix, and you better believe what you think about him if you think he is that guy to do that. And we've just heard no indication one way or the other. I think it's going to be very tempting for Seattle. I think what would probably end up overruling it, Thomas, is that there would be some team probably willing to trade up and give Seattle a little bit of a bevy of picks, not complete an embarrassment of riches, but, make it worth our while. And that'd be too big of a draw for John versus jumping on Penix, I would think. But it really does come down to their evaluation of Penix and how much they love the guy or don't love the guy. Why do I says Newton or Murray gives something Seattle hasn't had? A dominant one-gapping 3 tech interior pass rusher is a must in the modern NFL. Definitely is. Definitely is. I mean, build up the lines. You're not going to go wrong, I don't think. So, I could completely understand them taking that track with it. Ramsey Foster says, I'm starting to see more and more mock drafts showing the Seahawks take Barton. I think it just kind of goes into the tandem, Ramsey, of the expectation is John's going to try to trade back. He's been very successful in years past in driving to trade back as much as he possibly can in the first round. And so they're kind of building that in. And then you got the fact that Seattle hasn't really addressed the interior of the offensive line in a major way this offseason, despite it seeming to be a very big need, especially on the back of you losing both of your 2 starting players this offseason, in addition to a center. So it makes a lot of sense, I think. Good morning, football breakdowns. He is definitely we're talking about Bowers. Let me get up here a little bit where we got. Brian says Bowers is unique, not generational. Good morning, football says he is definitely generational. Best tight end we've seen for years. Definitely got hard for me to quite get to generational with him, but I do think that he's in that layered line. He's a little bit like Caleb Williams, where it's like you go, okay, well, you're not generational now, but you're also not just really good. There's like this spot you're in, kind of in between those two places a bit. Corey says, I could see the Chiefs making a push trying to trade for DK. Beach says DK was one of his biggest draft misses. It's possible. They're going to have to give us a hell of a haul, though. They're picking 32 overall in this first round. It's going to take quite a bit if they wanted to make that kind of swing. Next year would be more of the time, I think, if that's going to happen. That would be when it would occur if it was to occur. We'll see. We will see. Thomas says, yeah, I like McCaffrey a lot. McMillan knows the Grubb offense really well. He does, Thomas, but then that does come back into play on this of, okay, what happens with JSN? If you take McMillan in the late 3rd round, where do you then put JSN? I mean, can JSN truly play on the outside at that point? Are you trusting between the two of them that they can kind of intermix it and flick it between the two and play on that outside long term? Ramsey Foster says, who's your dream scenario 2nd round pick if we manage to pick one up after trading down in the 1st? Junior Colson tends to be the guy that I just can't pass up on, Ramsey, when I get in the middle 2nd. I think he was born to play middle linebacker. I think that he is got a lot of upside to his game still left remaining. A tremendously young player. He started at a major program like Michigan with Harbaugh as a freshman. He knows this defense backwards and forwards. He can walk in and start for you day one if you need him to. Colson is, to me, the guy that he doesn't necessarily flash every which way but loose, but he has very few limitations, if any, to his game. And there's a lot of belief that, in my opinion, he's going to continue to get better. So I really keep coming back to Colson in the second round there. If not him, then probably Beebe. Cooper Beebe, the guard, would be another guy that I would say that certainly would strike me. Or even a Tyler Nubin. These would be all very, to me, enticing potential picks. And Brian, we won't go the DK trade talk here. No more. Cliffy says, interesting. Brendan's also live in his latest mock draft. He also traded back at 26 and took Byron Murphy. Drafts are forever going to be unpredictable. They are. And both with me and Brendan Cliffick, what we're trying to do is we do a lot of studying in the background as to what we're, trying to pull from what we're hearing from rumors across the league from the variety of different sources. And you're trying to, distill that all down into the final conclusion of where you think the team is going. That's part of what we do in covering this team. It's both to analyze it and to try to predict this stuff, to better inform you guys on there. And so I think what both me and Brendan are telling you on that is a little bit of like what we're hearing in the tea leaves is there's a heavy amount of Byron Murphy love being given out there. And there's probably some traction to that. Raising Kiddo says, no way we would have to send us, they would have to send us Creed, Humphrey, Sneed, and their number one pick. Well, they already traded Sneed, Raising Kiddos, so they'd have to give us a lot more than that. And no more Sneed left in play. Raising Kiddos, Murphy and Barton and McConkey, DeJean and Barton, some combo like that. Randall McDaniel in the house. What's up, man? He says, thank you for the $5, Randall. He says, pretty sure 2020 was the first draft I watched you cover. The Brooks year. Really cool to see you take the channel to where it is now. Props, bro. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Very kind of you to say, Randall. And it's been you and many in that elk like that have helped me to get to where we've gotten here. You know what I mean? It's you guys' support from day one here, Randall. And I'm not just talking about the donation here. In fact, not the donations as much as I appreciate the donations. Those have definitely allowed me to do this full time. But it's the support that you guys have uniformly given throughout doing this from the day one and starting this channel up. And it's part of what pushes me forward to want to keep doing this in the future and do it more and more and more and just keep driving harder and harder on it because I enjoyed so much. You guys encourage and say, hey, you're on the right track with this. This is exactly what people want to see and talk about and discuss. And I love doing it. As I say, it's my favorite thing to do. And we've come a long way, Randall, from the Jordan Brooks days. We've come a long, long way. And it's been a real fun road. And I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to the future, both the future of this draft, future of this channel. I'm going to get up to training camp this year, 100% for sure. I'm going to try to get 4 or 5 days of training camp in if I can do it. So, we're just going to keep growing and growing and growing and hopefully keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But thank you, man. I appreciate everything you've done for the channel. You've been there since day one with me, man, ride or dying. So, I thank you for that. And tomorrow's going to be awesome, brother. I can't wait to watch this draft with you again. Good morning, football breakdowns. I keep trading back with the Eagles. And the Eagles are one of the teams that have been rumored to be who Seattle's looking at maybe trading back with. I think we've heard it's the Eagles, maybe the Packers. We've also heard Washington with their 2 second-round picks might be an option there. Thomas says, yeah, I saw that draft. I've never seen Brandon so mad when it comes to Jordan Brooks. Indeed, if you guys want to have a little bit of fun, look up under my video section. You can watch my first I cobbled together a video of my first 3 reactions to the first picks of the drafts when I first started this channel. And it was, the first 3 picks I think were LJ Collier, Jordan Brooks, and Dwayne Eskridge in successive 3 years. And I lost it on all 3 streams. I did not keep my stuff together. I was not a fan of the picks. None of them. Luckily, the last couple of years have been a bit better. I haven't had to lose my stuff, man. But yeah, not proud of that video, but it's part of the Hawks Nest history. I can't run from it either. Thomas says, I think I traded back 2 to 3 times, stockpile picks, but that dang PFN simulator keeps having Knicks and Penix at 45. It gets tough when they're dropped that spot, isn't it? It's like, I can't. No. Can't pass up at that spot. I get it. I'm the same way there. And if they're sitting there dangling, you're just like, ooh, that's too good. But the double trade back, the double dip, that'd be great. Double dip in the chip would be sweet. You go 16, 23, 23, 30, extra 2, extra 3. I'm with it. Ramsey Foster, Hawks Nest quickly became my go-to for Seahawks stuff. Got tired of constantly hearing top billing go off about prison loving and insulting 90% of his video commentators. Yeah, it's he's got a style. He's got style, and you know, he resonates with it. But I appreciate that, Ramsey, man. I want to keep getting better at this at all times, man, and that's why I try to be open to criticisms. I know I sometimes get snappy, but you know, today I get to blame that on my cold. If I was snappy today, it's because I was sick. So. And Top Billin does do the stuff with it too, but he definitely works his butt off on that channel. He's got a great big channel on it. So, but I have heard the prison loving jokes can keep coming in too much. Don't drop the soap. Corey says maybe Pete Carroll was the trade back guy, not John. We may come to find that, Corey. I mean, we're getting John unchained. So whatever John is going to be, there's no more Coach Carroll. It's on him. Oh, Coach Carroll, it's on your back, brother. You know, if you're John, it's sink or swim now with you. And there's no more excuses. There's no patsies. There's no whipping boys. There's no, well, Coach Carroll's the vice president, and I'm technically underneath him. No. You are, it's on your shoulders now to make this go. And we're going to learn a lot about where John is and what he's going to do. Corey says, what's unpredictable with the Seahawks draft is Pete was John's boss, and Pete had the final say in drafting players, so we don't know what picks John actually made. Yeah, that's right. And that's to your point about learning now a little bit more clear. I do think, Corey, there was a little, and obviously I can't prove this with 100% certainty, but I do think that 2 years ago, some of the draft oversight that Carroll had was wrestled free of him and given back over to John Schneider. And that's why I think the last 2 drafts have been so successful, because John was able to kind of run unfettered. Why do I remember the pain? I remember the years of pain for poor Brando, LJ, Brooks, Eskridge, the pain. Oh, nothing like going through a draft process where you study all these guys and then they just make a pick where you're just going, yeah. I mean, in the Jordan Brooks' case, imagine Seattle's picking up, we trade back in 26, and we trade back at 26, and we end up taking Nathaniel Watson. If you want to feel like the equivalent of what I felt with the Brooks pick. Imagine we trade back 26, get the second rounder back, and the first selection the Seahawks make Nathaniel Watson out of Mississippi. And that's what that Jordan Brooks pick was just like. Clivic B, I never heard your thoughts on Mike McDonald removing old Seahawks wall art in the practice facility. Any thoughts on that? I know it's old news, but I never heard your thoughts. Yes, I think it's a very highly overblown story. It was kind of wild to watch Rich Eisen decide to make this a point, and I guess it's a slower point of the offseason. You got to kind of drum up this kind of stuff. It's also, man, sometimes the players... And certain dreadlock former player can be very, very sensitive. Very sensitive. If we listen to what they said, you know, they're not taking down the history of the Legion of Boom. What they're doing is they're taking down the old pictures and they're putting up digital versions, which is everybody now in their homes are starting to put these digital version pictures together, right? This is just working our way to the modern age. And they're not taking away all of the Legion of Boom history. What they're doing is that instead of it just being Legion of Boom history, they're working in the older ages that came before it, the Holmgren eras, the Chuck Knox's eras. And quite frankly, I'm very much in favor of this. It's one of my issues I have at times in talking with fans is that they're fans that like to believe that Seattle's history and everything that we are as a franchise only began when Coach Carroll walked in the door. And that is so far off base and nowhere near the truth that it really does frustrate me to hear it. So including that history and acknowledging that history is a good thing. This isn't a Johnny-come-lately team. This is a team that's been around for 50 years. And digital images from within its facilities should reflect that. So I think it was very much overblown. I don't think the players like Sherman, who freaked out about it, really took the time to pay attention. It's just sort of a ready, fire, aim with Richard at times. Where it's like, can you just do a little bit of legwork before you flip the F out on stuff? Can you do just like a modichrome of legwork before you lose your stuff? And that just fanned the flames on this whole story. But it's not them removing the history. And it's also beyond it not being the big deal, or them not even really removing the pictures. They're just changing it out for digital ones. Beyond all that, it's nothing unusual that any one coach doesn't do when they walk into a facility. Did Coach Carroll walk into the facility and leave up all the pictures of Mike Holmgren going to the Super Bowl and all that? Or was that stuff taken down when Coach Carroll came in the door? It's highly overblown. It really is. But it'll probably go away too as a non-story really at the end of the day. Ramsey says, outside of the offensive line, I'm mostly curious about our new interior defensive line rotation is going to look after the draft, especially with the new defensive scheme coming in. Indeed. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of flow that through a little bit. They've got a lot of bodies now, it seems like, but how those bodies fit out, how the snap rotations work, we'll just have to kind of see where their method's going to go. It's all kind of a new learning experience at this point for me, Ramsey. Everything in this, I knew that old defense backwards and forwards. This is going to be a lot more of a going back to school kind of thing on this one. Ricardo says, laughing out loud, Sherman cries so much about the Seahawks. My God, he does. Talk about an axe to grind. Brian, it's time for your rest before Draftmas. Yeah, we'll start putting a bit of a button on this one, I think. Or I got to save the voice for the next 3 days. Raising kiddos, I was screaming at the TV for the Hawks to take Creed Humphrey. I couldn't believe the Chiefs got him. If you watched the Eskridge video, that's exactly what I'm doing, raising kiddos too. As me and the chat are just, we're chanting like we're in a Catholic monastery, Humphrey, 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 Namaste Padre, tu ma Padre, Humphrey, Namato Seme tu Padre, Numata Padre Bunde tu Humphrey. Nah, we were trying to will it. It didn't work though. Thomas says, I totally understand the reasoning taking stuff down. Heck, I am the head coach. I would reorganize it so the team will be successful. Legion of Boom is too sensitive, especially since they haven't been here. Yeah, I just think that they didn't, again, their images are still going to be up there. Part of it'll be a digital montage, right? So instead of being one stagnant image on a wall, it's going to be that montage thing that's always kind of rolling through. Ramsey says, Sherman knows show business. He's going off because he knows drama brings in eyes. I agree. I think there's a little bit of the understanding that clicks, views. How does the saying go, Ramsey? It's there's no such thing as bad. God, I'm butchering it. There's no such thing as a bad story. I forget. It's a Hollywood term thing, but it's all good from their perspective on that side of it. Why do Weiss' top villain doesn't do breakdowns, just highlights? Dude is never critical of a Seattle player or move. Oh, wow, they did that after extending the punter. Does have quality production value. Yeah, he's got his own little niche with what he does, and that's what you got to do. You got to get your own little style on YouTube, and it's, I think, why he's resonated as much as he is, with the with how big he is. Guy's done great work. He's awesome at it. It's the place that you got to come to when you do this thing, and it's always what I say is it's the hardest part in doing this kind of analysis on a team is the negative side you've got to go into. Because people really, there's contingents of the audience that really don't like negativity. And I think you have to kind of come down to a spot in a channel growth scenario where you say, am I willing to limit my channel growth in order to remain honest to my followers? And I'm not trying to throw that any which way. I mean, I understand completely the point. I'm just not going to go down the negative track. We'll just stay in kind of the positive place of it. And I'll just, because this thing will only bring me out benefits. Going negative doesn't really bring me out benefits. And while I will say, I don't think going negative is going to bring you out a lot of subscriber benefits or going to up your antes in that. I think that the people that are your audience will appreciate honesty at the end of the day, and that the audience that you are claiming understands that you're always being honest with them. And I think if you lose that, if you lose the audience believing you're being honest with them, I think you lose. There's a little bit of trust that's lost that I don't think you want to lose here when you do this stuff a bit. And so I made the choice at one point or another. I don't think I'm capable of being super just homered up and, everything's great, everything's wonderful, let's party thing. I'm pretty optimistic, but I definitely will call out what I think has to be called out or discussed. And I don't think if you're covering the team that you can't not do that just because it's not something that drives as many clicks or views for you. I think it's at the end of the day, you got to think about what the audience is going to want more than what drives your audience higher. Does that make sense? We can lay in the stream. Brain's going dirty. Tucker says best trade back is New York. Gettleman, who never traded back in his life, was pressured by Joe Judge to finally do it. He listened and did it in the Fields trade with Micah Parsons and Rashawn Slater available. Gettleman strikes me as the kind of guy too that would probably like never let that owner live it down. He'd be bitter about that for years. Thomas says, but Legion of Boom believes Seattle wasn't great until they got into the building, which is crap. This isn't the Browns or the Lions. Yeah, that's the way that some of them would try to paint that. Sherman especially, I've heard him blatantly try to paint it that way. And it's completely out of pocket. You know, we were in a Super Bowl 5 years, 6, 7 years before you guys got there. If you're going to try to paint us as a Browns or Lions, two teams that haven't sniffed a conference championship, much less a Super Bowl. Well, at least Lions, I guess, did get to technically last year, but it's not the same kind of thing. And it has always kind of bothered me too a little bit with the way they talked about it like that, Thomas. And it's like, you guys chill. Can we dial down the ego once and for all just a little bit? You know, can we just take a couple notches down? Livik says, agreed with everything you just said. There's a reason why we chose to hire Mike McDonald. Thank you for your thoughts. I appreciate that, Cliffic. Yeah, I tried to look a little bit deeper and to understand it a bit more, but I kept coming down to this makes sense. And you do not want I don't want this new group to be living in the past. I want them to honor and celebrate the memory of the old, but it's about the new. And you can't turn to the new if you're just sitting there completely obsessed with the past. Corey says the only picture would matter is Paul Allen holding the Lombardi trophy. They were talking about the Seahawks going to LA before Paul Allen bought the Seahawks and stopped that from happening. Amen, Corey. Amen. Yeah, Paul will always have his image in that, and eventually probably should have a statue in front of the stadium, quite frankly. He's the guy that's where when those players talk about that, we established the winning, no, you didn't. Paul Allen established the winning culture here. Paul Allen, by deciding to be the kind of owner that it takes to have a winning franchise, is the guy that started that, and he deserves those props. And I'll always give the Legion of Boom players the props too. I'm not saying they don't have their special spot in history too, but it's about the history of Seattle, the history of the Seahawks, and the celebration of all of it, not just partial part of it. Holiest hand grenade says, man, CTE is hitting Sherm the same way it hit Brown. Roxanne says, publicity. Yeah, I think you're right on it, Roxanne. I think you're very right on it. It's clicks are good, I guess, No such thing as bad publicity. You're saving me on that. No such thing as bad publicity. That's what I was trying to say. Exactly. And it took me a while to get there, but we got there eventually. Rand says, I read something where somewhere else in the facility, the Sherman batted pass is still on the walls. So I don't know what he's talking about. Well, this is where we get to the whole thing too. It's not even the whole building. They're digitalizing a certain section from a certain place they walk from to the building to another. This is why this whole thing was like, really? We're getting our panties up in a bunch over this? Like, it's one corridor. It's one corridor. It ain't the whole, building. And the fact that they still have Sherman with the batted pass up, despite the fact he's right and left at times, taking his share of little, subtle shots to the organization is pretty, shows the high ground they've taken on some of this too, which again goes counter to their whole narrative of the situation, trying to erase the past. Where no one's trying to erase the past. Random McDaniel, thank you for the $2 donation. What round do you take a stab at wide receiver? Lots of options. I got to be honest that I think that there's really going to be a pull for John with 2 4th-round picks, Randall, and the value of the receiver that will have dropped to the 4th round, because there's a very high likelihood that you're looking at an early 3rd-round graded receiver who then drops to you maybe late 4th round, because there's so many of them and they can't all be taken. And so that's going to be where I think there'll be a heavy draw by John at that point to take a guy, because the value will be too good. And if you're looking late 4th and you got an early 3rd round receiving grade up there, what other position are you going to have as early in a grade on across the board at that point? Maybe corner, but certainly not interior line, and probably not defensive line either at that point. Cliffig says, history is forever history. It'll always be a memory. I never liked drama, but it for sure broke the news to the Seahawks community and the NFL community. Yeah, absolutely it did. Absolutely. Thomas, when Seattle when Seattle de-Eskridge that year, I practically threw my cell phone at the TV. Who the heck is that, and why did they pick him? Laughing out loud. Yeah, I was doing a very similar thing where I thought my chat was trolling me. I was in the chat. I was like, guys, stop saying Eskridge if it's not the pick. I started getting like testy with the chat because I thought they were trolling me. And they're like, no, it really is. Ramsey says, Top Billin absolutely does analysis. He's not super in depth with it, but he definitely has some videos going into detail on player schemes, techniques. I agree that most of his content ends up centering around highlights, though. He certainly has his catchphrases for him. Yeah, I can't hate on what he does. He does hard work, puts out great content. People resonate with it, And I think he's played. He knows the sport. He does understand it, I think he just kind of leans into that other stuff kind of for the entertainment aspect of it. You can get real dry when you get into the X's and O's at times. Thomas McDonald can't move Seattle forward by worrying about whether people like his move. I believe McDonald will do fine. Me too. Why do I? The thing I hate, the D never took responsibility for giving up 14 points in the last 10 minutes. Put it all on Pete, Russ, and Bevell. They did. Yeah. Thing I've always gone back to too as well. And even that where I come down into, it's really not about a blame game to be made at that day as like, somebody crapped the bed. Somebody messed up their job that day. It's more of, well, your Legion of Boom got decimated by injuries. You lost your slot corner after halfway into the first quarter and you didn't have a good replacement for him. And they got picked on by the GOAT. That's one of those ones where you sort of take that L and you go, hey, nothing to be ashamed of. We took the GOAT down to the wire with a battered defensive secondary that was being held together by glue and sticks and rope. Ramsey, any linebackers you think would be worth taking in the later rounds? Oh yeah, I especially interior linebacker. I mean, if you can get guys like a Trevin Wallace, a Michael Barrett, a Darius Masau, Edifon Uliafosio, Curtis Jacobs, or Jalen Ford. Any of those guys were to drop or dip on down into kind of that 5th, 6th round territory, I certainly think they could be very interesting because you're looking at guys that might have some starting potential to them. A couple of these guys I feel like are being maybe slept on a little bit. Not that they're really high-end prospects, but that they are at times in the mock draft simulators, both with PFF or PFN, they are falling into sort of that 5th, 6th, 7th round range of things at times, like Nathaniel Watson, who I think at the least would be like kind of a 4th round pick. Well, yeah, hand grenade. The whole paint gate got annoying that John had to tell the media to basically shut up. Corey, Seahawks are the only team that made the NFC Championship and AFC Championship game. They made history before the Legion. Amen, man. So I'm saying, like, when you try to say, like, well, we didn't start, Seahawks organizers didn't do anything until we were here. It's like, boy, you're sort of mudding up the prior people that came before you. We had the best receiver in NFL history, one of the great Hall of Fame defensive tackles, excellent second. We had an excellent secondary before those guys got there that was put together with some amazing players, not just good players, but amazing players. Dave Brown, Kenny Easley, All right, well, let's start putting a bit of a button on this one, folks. Because I want to try to save my voice. We did 3 hours today, and I want to make sure I got the goods for the next couple of days, especially I'm trying to shake off this sickness thing that's been kind of battering me the last couple of days since the move. I want to thank really quickly, here's we're wrapping up today, the sponsor of the show, Underdog Fantasy. Thank you for sponsoring the show, and thank you for doing so throughout the whole course of this past year. You can use Underdog Fantasy right now. I haven't checked yet to see if they got the odds going on with the draft or whatnot. I don't think they do on that, but I'm going to check it out tonight and see if they do. But you can utilize my code right now when you go to the Underdog Fantasy site for the first time, NEST, or click the top of the link in the top of the description section below, and they will match you up to 100% of $100 of your first deposit. So $100 on the Hawks Nest from me to you, and you support the channel at the same time. Now, there are limitations within the state of Washington, no doubt about that. They don't let you do a lot of gambling in the state. They like to hold your hand on that one. But if you do go into a casino, you can use the app Info on their network and operate from within that. So use Underdog Fantasy today. Go out there, get yourself some money. Go head-to-head. Do the daily fantasy leagues. That's right. You can do a daily fantasy baseball, daily fantasy basketball. Whatever you want to get into, they got it. They got you taken care of. Utilize it today with them. And thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring the show. as you guys will be throughout the whole course of this offseason. Thomas says, shoot, Seattle almost won. If they actually learned from it instead of throwing a fit, I believe they could have at least won 2 more Super Bowls. Casey ran into that, and they have won 3 Super Bowls now. Yes. Instead of taking it as something to grow on or build upon, you know, I mean, when the Falcons beat them at the end that one time, look at that Falcons loss in 2012. Falcons beat them. They're like, man, we had a chance this year. We could have been a Super Bowl team. We feel like we came up short, you know. You go, you know, did Russell and company turn around and be like, man, we went down and had that game won. You know, we left like 20 seconds on the clock. All you guys had to do was hold them down for 20 seconds, and we got you the win in that game, and you couldn't do it. You know, did Russ and offense throw that defense into the bus in 2012? No. They said, we're going to build from this. We're going to grow from this. We're going to take this and this is going to make us hungrier for next year. And they did not do that with the Super Bowl deal, and instead went the opposite direction. And in the end of the day, they've acknowledged it's what upended that run. It's what stopped that run dead in its tracks. Why do I know you'll think I'm making it up, but I swear I'm not. I was up in bed for hours at 3 to 5 asking why Averill had to get hurt. Trauma is constantly reliving a scarring event. No, it was a brutal game on that. And the injuries are what came up. That's really, I don't like to blame injuries, but you can't deny it at that point. You know, Averill goes out in that game, and Sherman's got, I think, his separated shoulder, and Earl Thomas, I think, has got the torn ligament in his arm, and then Cam Chancellor tears his MCL 2 days before the start of the game, and then you lose Jeremy Lane halfway. It's just like, there comes a point where you lose too many guys. You're not, especially going up against a team like the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It's just, you could only hold on for so long. Feed More Seahawks, are you excited to see a new war room on draft day? Hell yeah. Might be some more. We also got some rumors, folks, that we might be getting new jerseys unveiled tomorrow. I don't know if there's any truth to it. It got taken down and all that. Roxanne, tomorrow, 4 p.m. EST. Is that the correct? I think the draft starts at 5, Roxanne, but I'm going to be starting up the stream somewhere between 4 and 4:30 with the last mock draft of the day. So we'll be doing it somewhere between 4 and 4:30 tomorrow, for sure. Corey says Michael Bennett was the guy in that Super Bowl. He harassed Tom Brady when we had a lot of defense hurt. Oh, he was a manimal in that game. You can find the mic'd up tape of Belichick going over and talking to the defensive coordinator at that time going, we got to get 72 blocked. We can't get him blocked. He's unblockable right now. I mean, he was a monster in that game. Corey says, are you watching draft day tonight? I might just, man. Kind of like watching the Christmas Story before Christmas. You know, you got to watch those kind of movies before. There's not a lot of draft movies. So, would have been nice to get back to the Super Bowl the 3rd time after we lost to New England. I can't remember, but weren't we the favorites to win the NFC the following season after New England? We were. And we mounted a hell of a comeback against the Panthers. Just couldn't close the door there at the end. We got too far behind. You remember that Panther game too? They had that whole thing with the cleat issue, and there was something weird with the turf because it had been like beat upon by high school teams, and so Panthers were ready with their special cleats. We weren't. Took us until like the second half to kind of figure out our cleat situation, and there it was. That was the end. That was the end. Ricardo says, yeah, Lane was on Edelman shutting him down, and then Edelman went Super Saiyan. Yeah, he got him on that tackle, man. Holy hell. I think he tore his ACL, broke his arm, and he definitely Julian brought it on that tackle. My goodness. Ramsey says Cam held that defense together, and him retiring was the end of the Legion of Boom. He did. He was the guy that I think kept a lot of wild personalities kind of in alignment in retrospect. Ramsey said Jeremy Lane going down is the biggest reason lost. Brady started tearing us up after he's out. Yeah, agreed. That and the Averill thing were the 1-2 punch that just let Brady kind of really flourish. And that was a huge loss. Lane was a hell of a player before that injury. It really robbed him, I think, long term of what he could have been as a player. But he was setting himself up to be an outstanding slot. Took over for the guy who went out there in free agency the prior year that got paid a little bit, Walter Thurman, I think, and he didn't miss a beat out there. Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap this up on that note. We will be back tomorrow about 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. We'll be doing all 3 of the days of the draft here. We got B&B shows after each day of the draft, and you'll be getting some uploads on every single pick from me as well with reactions on that. So I hope you guys are all ready for a lot of content coming down the board. I appreciate everybody watching today. and the great discussion at hand. Very kind of you guys as ever in that respect. Thanks to all that donated. Do me a favor if you guys can on your way out the door today. Please do hit that like button for me. It does help out the channel, helps the channel grow. It's a small thing, but it's a major thing in my heart and getting this channel a little bit bigger and keeping us always on the grow. Thank you for watching today. If you are a subscriber to the channel, last note, just do take a look at your community post, as I did put the Brandon's draft guide posted on up over there. I'll repost it tomorrow before the draft, but something that you can lean on if you want to for some extra draft insight as we're going through this draft if you would like to. But about 73,000 words on this draft, so a lot of draft coverage there in regards to that. Please do check that out. I thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you. Love you. Be back in about 20 hours or so to pick this thing back up, and we're going to see what our Seattle Seahawks are going to do. It's been 2 straight years of great drafting. Let's see if it can be 3 straight. I think it will be, because John is operating from a mindset of value, 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 and that will lead you to the promised land, as it has led so many organizations before it. Thanks for watching. Please don't you forget, 20 hours till we're back, but I do not want you to forget, as we're about to kick this draft's ass. Oh my goodness. Go Hawks.